Just gonna keep this.
When you're busy, figure out what you're going to do for.
Yeah.
First thing
Yeah,
you gotta figure out
the difficult thing, though, is when your daughters are doing this and they get caught in their hair. Because there's a particular point that it can be agreed.
Okay, wait a minute.
That would not be fun.
I'm well.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we'd like to call the study session to order. Superintendent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Board President King. Appreciate that. We have two presentations for you today and then a discussion regarding Senate Bill 188. So we'll first turn over time to Eric Woodhouse, Executive Director of Operations. You have received this in your board documents. And so I believe Eric is going to try and go fairly quickly through this, as most of the information should be review, or your eyes have been on it before. Appreciate him and his work. We've asked to kind of separate this into new geographical areas for the new district. And so thank you, Eric. Thank you for your team and their support of you. And we'll turn it over to you when you finish up. Then we'll transition to land trust plans and some training by Scott.
Can I open with a poem? Robert Frost.
Two
The
roads
road's not
diverge.
taken. Three roads diverge. Sorry, I could not travel all three. Be one traveler. And I'm telling you, as I've looked at each one of these capital plans for each of the new districts, the more I look at it, the more confident I am that each one of these districts are truly posed to be a strong district, especially from a capital lens. And so I know that road and the terrain will look a little different for each area, but still, the vistas and views are going to be equally good across all three districts. And so the more I study it, the more confident in that I am. But for today's objective, with all the information that we've gathered, it's still difficult to synthesize that into 40 minutes. And so that's the reason why I gave you guys this earlier. I want the public to be aware that we will be making these slides available to the public for their review afterwards. And so if it's like I'm going through this too fast or I didn't have time to study this, this will be available then as well for any questions you might have. So the objectives today is more of a 30,000-foot view, identify critical capital needs throughout each newly created district, one that we can potentially act on now, but two that we need to study further, and then establish those priorities for study, board input, or for future deeper study on capital planning. This is my operations team that deals specifically with capital planning. So Gary Twitchell is on my operations team that isn't on our capital planning committee. These are the five that are. Frank is here, Joe Hayes is also here, Derek Farnes and Carrie Lynn is not here, but we definitely appreciate everything she does, and my life is blessed because I get to work with these incredible individuals. So a lot of the planning of this presentation, all of those individuals were involved in making it. So I thought I'd start with the South and then kind of make my way across the district with this presentation. So the South District will have 29 schools. 20 of those are elementaries, 5 of those are middle or junior highs, 4 high schools, and then we don't currently have any specialized schools there, but you could easily incorporate those specialty schools with existing properties. 23,683 students, that's what we're anticipating if we were to divide today how many students would be in the South District. So a good, healthy district. Thought I'd start with the assets as well. You have a strong physical facilities department, which also includes purchasing and warehouse. You've also got a sped department there that's close to the physical facilities. And then you've got a lot of property as well. Geneva, Sharon Elementary, Valley View, and then the Thorn property that we have never built on as well. So you've got a good, healthy cadre of property to use as assets. When you consider your needs, district office site, transportation complex. So when we look at a transportation complex, we're looking at 12 to 15 acres with 4 bays and a wash. Something that can house around 72 buses. I know that there was some consideration on, well, can we use the physical facilities department? That used to be an old service center, but the bus drivers would always park their buses at home because there just wasn't any space, especially when you're talking about 72 buses. So you really just need to look at what that complex would look like, and then any specialized schools, school or schools. So I'm talking like a Dan Peterson. I'm also talking about Polaris or Summit, if you wanted to do something like that, or adult ed. Where would we house those? We could use some of the existing properties for that if that's somewhere that the board wanted to study. So for purposes of this study, I wanted to do elementary enrollment by area. Now usually when we do a boundary study, we look specifically for elementary schools and some of the neighboring schools, because sometimes you don't want to do a unilateral boundary adjustment, because when I'm talking averages here, that's the ideal. So it's really difficult when you do individual by individual school boundaries to completely average it out across the span. But we also want healthy school size. And what we're finding, and this just isn't in the South, this is all across the nation, communities are not regenerating the way that they once did. That is driven in part by the housing market. It's also driven by the interest rates. So when an individual has a home and they become empty nesters, it becomes too expensive to sell that house and move somewhere else. So we're just not seeing the turnover that we used to, and people just aren't having as many children. So in order to keep a healthy balance of enrollment at a school without it continuing to decline, if you increase the circumference of that boundary area, there's a lot stronger likelihood that you will stabilize that enrollment so you don't have to keep doing boundary adjustments. So we're seeing enrollment decline, not just in the South and the Central, we're starting to see it, and even in the West, we're starting to see some of that decline. So by area then, it'll give you a good idea of averages. So we're going to do that by the North Orem-Linden area, the South Orem, 4 schools there, 8 in the north, and then we'll look at some of the higher enrollment by the South District. So here you consider these 8 schools: Linden, Rocky Mountain, Aspen, Northridge, Bonneville, Windsor, Orchard, Foothill. You can look at the projections, and as you go all the way to fall of 2029, you can see that there's really no school even in the 500s. Some schools get into the 300s, some low 300s. The interesting thing is if you look at all of these projections, but you look at the total and then you average that by 8, well, first of all, that if you look at the total for fall of 2024 and then take the fall of 2029 projected average, that's about a 17% decline in student enrollment. So fairly significant there, but we can plan for that. So if you look at the average of 8 schools, it actually averages out pretty nice. Now, the thing to consider in the South is that those schools weren't built as large as the schools in the West. So, you know, a good ideal average for those schools, if you start getting above 800, then it starts to feel really crowded in some of these smaller schools. So a little difference there in the West, but you can still get up to 500, 600, 700 and still be okay with those. So if you look at the fall of 2027, if you were going to go from 8 schools to 7, this would be your new average. Again, reminding you that it's not so perfect as just taking an average, that boundary adjustments will be a little bit more complicated than that, but you could get it to these averages. If you went down to 5 in the fall of 2027, you're looking at an average of 702. If you're at a school, especially in the South, and you're able to stay above the 500s, I think that the academic feasibility of that school is healthy. You've got more than 1 or 2 teachers per grade level. You've got more opportunity for specialties. The strength of the professional learning community there is good. Once you start dipping below the 500s, and especially if that continues to decline, then you're not maximizing and utilizing your resources as much as you would want. South Orem area, Parkside, Orem, Westmore, Cherry Hill. As you see here, the majority of these are continuing to decline. Orem, surprisingly, it kind of dips, then it starts to grow just a little bit, slightly, but all of them you see, 600, 400, 500. If you look at the averages there for schools, if we average them out by doing a boundary readjustment, you're still healthy in the 500s. If you reduced by 1, you're in the 700s, high 700s, which that's higher for that area. So something to consider. But if you reduced to 2 in that area, that's just way too unmanageable. It just doesn't seem feasible to do that. So those are the elementaries. If we look at a secondary enrollment study, so I was asked by the board to contemplate what that would look like for a 9-12 situation. So I wanted to make sure to do that fully. So for your consideration then, we'll start going through it. So right now, in the South District, 10-12, these are the enrollment populations. So fall of 2024, Orem, 1229, Mountain View, 1600, Tippecanoe, 1475, Pleasant Grove, 1904. Now you'll notice that Orem's a little bit lower in enrollment. It's not as big as the other high schools as well, so take that into consideration. Even though we're doing averages here, if you average them all out and you've got the same enrollment going to Orem, That's not really gonna work because it's a smaller school, okay?
And these are 10, 12.
These are 10, 12, exactly, right up here. So, just wanted to give you a reference point for what that average is of the current schools. I mean, if you're looking at 14, 15, 1600, I mean, Pleasant Grove is sitting right now at 1900. So, Timpano's same footprint as Lone Peak. You could get up to, you know, the upper 1900s and still be okay there too. So if we look at a 9-12 configuration, so that is taking 9th grade out of the junior highs and then moving them into the high schools, what are the new averages? So the totals with 9th grade in the fall of 2024 are 8,342. Now, Eric, why didn't you just add those into the other high schools? Well, it's difficult because we don't know what those boundary adjustments would be. So for that reason, we took an average. If you look at the fall of 2027, that'd be 7920. Fall of 2029, 7719. So just like you can start to see that decline in the elementary school, that bubble of decline is going to make its way through the junior high and into the high schools as well. So that's why you'll see that decline over the next 5 to 10 years there. So if you look at the average though, you know, 2000, 2026, 1984, 1980, by fall of 2027, that's still a little bit too large for Orem High School, but you could do some reconfiguration in these boundaries and make it feasible. The one thing to consider though is if you were to make this possible with the 9-12, Orem and Timpanogos really will need that third gym. That was on our 2020 bond to be able to do that. As I've talked to the athletic directors at both of those high schools, kind of work through the logistics of their schedule, it really would be untenable.
Sorry, I missed the word.
The
They
third
really
gym.
need the gym.
Third,
the
yeah,
third gym.
Third
Okay.
auxiliary gym. Yep. It was on the 2020 bond. When that didn't pass, we just didn't build those. But they're getting by. But if you add the 9th graders in there, it really is untenable. Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Does Lone Peak have a third gym?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Jeff, would you concur on those other two? Okay.
So what you're saying is we should not consolidate until we get that gym built.
That would be something that you would want to consider, right? Because it would be really difficult to get. Mark.
So I just want to go back to that because it seems if you go back to the total enrollments at Timpanogos, maybe one screen back, they with only 1,400 students, it seems to me that they're even without an extra gym, they have so many fewer students than the school was built for that it seems like they should be able to find a way of making it work. So what am I missing? You know what I mean? Why do they need another gym just to make it work? Because for example, if you have a basketball class, you've got only half the number of students that you would have had in the past, so why can't you use half the court for one class and half the court for another? Why do you need an auxiliary gym?
You secondary people can correct me if I'm wrong, Jason.
Well, on that too, though, so even that, if it's 1351, that's just 1012. So if you divide that by 3 and then times by 4, they're going to be close to 1,900 students there. instead
Right.
of
But it was built for that number of students, so it should be able to handle that number. So why having the 9th graders in there? Why do you need another gym?
One of the big reasons is because you're bringing in additional teams. So now not only do you have your sophomore JV and your varsity, but you're also now have your freshman teams, girls and boys, who are all playing games, practicing, competing with all of the other winter sport activities in the high school. It becomes pretty complicated scheduling to make work, which is two gyms.
The PE classes, the extracurricular.
Okay, so I was thinking PE classes. I can see with teams you can't like divide the gym as easily.
You've added volleyball, you've added lacrosse, you've added other. Some of those are outside, but some of those are.
So how about this question then? I mean, if the board decided to do this, could they limp along for a few years before the auxiliary gyms were built, or is this like untenable? You can't even do this until you've got auxiliary gyms.
I think we could do an even deeper dive. I mean, I think if the board said, no, we're going to do this in the fall of 2027, then I think it would be the supervisors working very closely with the athletic directors to give you a true prospectus of, okay, is it untenable, Or could it be possible to limp along for a couple of years? Or could the South decide, okay, how much were those gyms, Frank? Were you estimating like
Like
5
10
million
million?
apiece? 5.5 million apiece. So, 10 million, if you use some of your capital funding there and you decided that that's where you wanted to build it first, then you could probably get that done before 2027. So that's something that the new board would want to contemplate.
When we had ninth graders at Skyridge, we still coordinated with the nearby junior high to utilize their gym space during the winter, and that was with 3 gyms at Skyridge.
And the cafeteria.
And the
the
cafeteria.
hallway, and another hallway.
That's a good perspective. Thank you.
But
Okay.
you have the gyms in the junior high, you could do some coordinating.
There's always ways.
So, we've moved the ninth graders into the high school. What does that look like for the junior highs now? So now the junior highs are currently, this is the 7-9. So where they're at sitting right now, 1300 Lake Ridge, 973 Orem, 1073 Canyon View, you can see the decline there. Oak Canyon, 1301, you can see the decline there by 312, 239. And then Pleasant Grove, you can see a little bit of a decline there too. So if you take those averages of the 7-9 schools, you're looking at about 1,000 each, which that's pretty healthy for a junior high. Some of our elementaries in the west are about that number too. But in the south, 4 schools, if you were to close 1, this would be your new average, about 1,500. If you close 2, and you went to 3 schools, now all of a sudden you're at 2,000. The thing that makes this complicated, if you were to close 2 junior highs or consider consolidation in that regard, I'm not sure what your feeder system would look like. Now all of a sudden you have 4 high schools and only 3 junior highs. I just think that complicates it, especially with what that boundary adjustment would be. But I think that you could safely close 1 and still not be maximizing out your schools if the board were to consider something like that. So what happens then if you move the ninth graders up and you've got 7-8? What happens to those numbers? You can see that it declines considerably. Now you've got one junior high at 642, another one at 658. Those numbers are really low. Now if you were to close 1, then this would be your new average. If you close 2, then this would be your average. If you close 3, then that would be your average. But again, if you were to go to close 2, I'm just not sure what that feeder pattern would look like. So then the natural question after that is, okay, you're lower here, but what if you made it 6 through 8 and made that a true middle school? We could do that study too. If you move the 6th graders out of the elementary, then you probably want to revisit the elementary boundaries as well, because that would decline those elementaries further than what I have listed here. So, anytime you make a change, that always reverberates up and down, right? Okay, so recommended. These are some things that you can consider soon. Trailside is growing. We've talked about this. We've done a boundary study before. A recommended timeline, I mean, you might want to wait on this until you get the new board in place. But even if you waited until you could open it in November, you could study it while the new board is put in. And then if you concluded it even in February or March, you could make that new boundary adjustment for the next school year, fall of 2026. So just for your consideration, that would relieve Trailside. But we do have a solution there for this next year, but moving out further than that, I think would be a little bit complicated. Recommend moving a little bit deeper in the elementary and secondary study. The infrastructure, studying where to put the district office, transportation complex, and just giving some options for that new board to consider. And then some options for a special school too. One thing to note, I know that I've been going through this fairly quickly. This is meant to be fluid work with the board. I appreciated meeting with you the other day, Emily. I think any of those conversations where if you're unsure about what that looks like for capital and you have questions, then please ask us that question. We will research it, and then we can either meet again in another study session, however often you want, or we'll meet with you individually. Either way is really good for us. We just want you to make sure that you're informed. Okay.
Sorry, I do care.
Yeah, Emily.
When we start looking at this stuff, can we also get the health of the schools?
Yes, and so we talked about that today in capital planning.
Okay.
Doing that very thing, Mark, when we were talking about just having a list of each school.
Yeah.
And one thing I think would be nice, especially for the new board members coming on, is given the school, given the year it was built, given all of the other maintenance that we've done, when did we replace the HVAC, when did we replace the roof, what's the lifespan of that, so that new boards kind of can look through all of their real estate and see which, so I think that'll help them with their decisions.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
sir.
How did you know? Did I have my hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, as far as price tag on your recommendations, and I'm talking even including those two gyms at Orem and Timpanogos, what are we talking in terms of price tag for the south?
It truly depends on the customization of what they want to do with, like an elementary. Do they want to, we talked about considering building on one of the other sites that we have there, or putting a transportation complex up first, or what about a district office? I just think some of those options, it's really going to be for a new board to say, all right, here we're going to prioritize all of these different variables, and I don't think I feel comfortable to say this and this price tag. I can tell you the two gyms are going to be around, what, 11 million?
10-ish
10.5,
million,
11?
but
Yeah.
our ballpark it, like let's say a transportation. I'm just trying to get an idea of like, here's a guesstimate with the south, with the central, and with the west.
But I think it's hard to configure out some of those things because, like, are they going to use an existing building for the district office, or are they going to build brand spanking new? And the price tag is significantly different depending on that. So part of it is the price tag can't be determined until some of those decisions are made.
I think if as a board, if you were to say, look, I want all of these variables researched, like give me a solid estimate on if we were to build each one of these new, what would it cost? If we were to reconfigure an existing building, what would that reconfiguration cost? I think that's what I was talking about, being a little bit more flexible. If you say, I want this studied a little bit further, we've got some time to do that.
Yeah, well, this is the first time that I've heard that those two gyms need to be part of that plan in order to move those ninth graders in. So
I think in the past when we studied that, that's always been the recommendation.
yeah, I knew it was recommended, but now I'm seeing that it's required. So
Well,
I don't know about required. I don't feel comfortable
well, the
saying
long
required.
range,
Yeah.
it is a requirement.
well, you would just put some stress on those
Yeah.
campuses without it, but not
Yeah.
required.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to ask about, and I believe that there would be stress on those campuses, but you could probably survive for a while you're getting
I mean, we can do hard things, right? Okay.
Yeah, but thanks for the offer to, meet with us individually, because that's what it's going to take is some,
Yep.
some really customized thinking and planning.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed.
And to your point, Mark, part of me is like, when you have enough buildings to do all the things, then there's no point in making kids suffer. If we can keep them in the junior high until we get gyms or whatever, you know what I mean? We've got the square footage.
Got plenty of square footage.
Yeah.
It's not the
And
budget.
there's empty schools you could use.
There's
When
just
I-
ways to solve the problem, I
When-
guess. is
When
what
I
I'm
say
saying.
3 roads diverge in the yellow wood, off this one road, you've got another full tree of branches
Yes.
of options, right? And I think that's what we're starting to
Yeah.
see, like, okay,
There's so many options.
what are the options? There's
Yeah.
a lot. I think it just depends on, once you figure out financially where you're at, then you can start to prioritize what you want to do with that money.
And I took the road less
Less
traveled
traveled
by,
by.
and that's made all the difference.
It
That's
has.
why I'm saying I would like an estimate.
And I think there are savings from consolidation, but there are costs to get that. The savings are ongoing savings, the cost
Right.
is a one-time, so you just need to process through that as well.
And that's really where the new board is gonna have to work really hard.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Central District, 37 schools, 23 of those are elementary, 6 are middle school, 6 high schools, 2 specialized schools. 34,468 students. So anticipated this will be the largest district. I'm not sure for how long, but at the reconfiguration will be. So when you look at the assets of the Central, you have a district office, you have a professional development center, which we call the ALC, transportation department. We also have, it's currently in the Central area. And we also have the adult transitional education center, which is our population, 18 to 21-year-olds. They're in the building that's kind of by our professional development center too. And then the property that Central owns is Powell property, Beckstead property, Cold Springs property, and then we also have a specialized school, Camp Peterson.
So you're
We
not
also have
counting-
all the Summit, Polaris at the 50s too, right? But
But
not
that's a
sure what we're gonna
rented
do with that
facility.
lease. Right, renting that facility. Yep. So when we look at infrastructure needs, you're gonna need to contemplate where to put a physical facilities complex, which could include the warehouse as well, all in one, kind of like what we have in the south area. So something to consider. So similar boundary adjustment study. So as we look at lower enrollment by area, we'll look at North Lehigh, and then we'll look at Highland Alpine area, and then look at some of the higher enrollment in that district too. So Ridgeline and Highland are included in both the North Lehigh and the Alpine Highland, just because they kind of straddle the border of both of those cities, and so wanted to include them in both of these, but just know that they are included, so it kind of offsets the numbers a little bit. But as you look at these averages, so a lot of the schools continue to decline. Belmont grows. We've got everybody else, it looks like, are declining. Average of 43, 46 by the fall of 2029. So as you look at potentially consolidating any of those, if that's an option, if you move from 7 to 6, then you're in the 750 range. Now, you might look at it and say, well, 7, Eric, in the fall of 2027, 643, that seems pretty healthy to me. It is. I mean, that's a pretty healthy school at 643. The tricky thing, though, is if you look at these boundaries, some of these are at 516, 493. That's why you're going to want to consider at least a boundary adjustment there. So if you consolidate, you're still around 750, which is still healthy. Some of them might be artificially increased by just the new building going around. We're doing, hopefully opening a formal boundary study for Inverness that's right up there by Micron that I think will be impacting a lot of these schools that we need to study. Okay, Alpine Highland, notice Ridgeline and Highland are in here again. Same numbers kind of dipping down, but you can also see combined with Alpine and Westfield, you can see that those numbers are lower. So if you look at an average, they're still in the 500s. Those schools are a little bit bigger, some of the newer ones. If you went to 3, then you've got these averages, which is tenable. 729 is a healthy number. Again, I think one thing to consider is what is the ideal size of an elementary school for academic reasons and for fiscal responsibility too. But 2, what is the geographical distance of that area? Because again, the more that you can widen that out, I didn't notice this, I didn't articulate this with the South, but if you increase that to outside of the 1.5 miles, which I know the South really likes walking school, so I think boards are going to have to contemplate that. If it's outside the 1.5 miles, then busing is included in there too. So we're talking about the ineligibles, but if you increase that boundary, you stabilize that enrollment over time, but you also have busing that's included in that, which could really help some of these lower income, lower SES students help them to get to school. Okay. Ooh, deep breath. All right. Some of the higher, what stands out to me, of course, is North Point, and we've talked about this. It's growing. River Rock, you can see, is declining a little bit according to projections. Snow Springs, you're seeing a decline. Lehigh and Meadow, you're also seeing a decline. And I remember when I was an administrator at Meadow as an intern, I think they were around 900. And that was about 12 years ago. So yeah, they're declining a lot too. So you're seeing that declining not just in the South, but you're seeing that in the Central and moving into the West. So what do we do in this situation, especially with North Point, River Rock, Snow Springs? Can we just reboundary all of this? The thing that you're going to need to consider as a board is when you look at these averages, that is an ideal. When you do a comprehensive boundary study, you're talking about shifting boundaries at 5, 6 multiple schools, and sometimes that's a little invasive, but it could also save you building a school if that's what you wanted to do. But for your recommendation, though, if you do 4 schools and you close one with no build, and you just did a comprehensive boundary adjustment, then you're going to be around in the 900s. And that can grow pretty quickly. And I think what we're seeing in this area, especially in the North Point areas, that's going to continue to grow. So with the 5 schools then, what this contemplates is leaving 5 schools as is. So if you just left all 5 schools and then did a complete boundary readjustment, you could bring it down to that. Or close one and build one. So if you closed one of those schools and you're looking at some seismic concerns there, and you want to close one of those and build something new so you're taking care of 2 things at once, then this would also be your average, which is a healthy average for that area. If you go 6 schools and you add one, so if you built on Cold Springs, but you didn't close one, then this would be your average as well.
Which is not awful.
Not awful, no. I mean, I think if you can maintain a school in that level, I think you're good. Yeah. I also wanted to throw in a secondary study as well. And the thing that's interesting about this study is if you look at Mountain Ridge and AF Junior High, you're welcome, Jeff, because I know that this has been on their plate a lot. And there is a lot of energy around this area too, because you're getting a lot of out of boundary that go from Mountain Ridge to AF Junior. So if you look at these totals right now, this year, there's 118 7th graders, 122 8th graders, and 125 9th graders that are currently boundaried for Mountain Ridge Junior that are attending AF Junior.
That's huge.
So as you look at the enrollment projected of fall of 2029, you're looking at Mountain Ridge at 751, but then you're looking at AF Junior High at 1783. That's quite an imbalance. So
But their capacities are different too, right?
Capacities
They
are
have
different
juniors
too.
at junior college.
yeah, I mean, it's bigger. Shane can probably, or superintendent can probably speak to that a little bit better, right?
It is.
It's still,
But Mountain Ridge has held 2,000 plus students before Timberline was built too.
that's
so.
right. Yep. So, what do we do there? One of the recommendations, especially from secondary supervisors, is just look at sunsetting it. So, you've already got the boundary there, but we could do another boundary study, see if we need to adjust that boundary at all. But even if you just looked at sunsetting it and enforce the current boundary that you already have, starting in the fall of 2025 with just the 7th graders going to Mountain Ridge that are boundaried there, then your new enrollment would be 1082. Those 7th graders would move to 8th grade in 2026. You get the 7th grade coming in and go to 1124. And by fall of 2027, you'd have 7th, 8th, and 9th in boundary attending there at an enrollment of 1232, and then you're looking at AF Junior at 1804. So, again, just something that I think those boards are going to want to wrestle with on what they want to do in that area, because I'm nervous about that 751 number in fall of 2029. And Jessica Norris already talked about the challenges of staffing there.
Eric, have we ever looked at how many go to AF junior because they want to be in the band program or it's baseball?
And I think that is the main variable. Athletics, band, some of these other programs. And I think it's also where they're going to go to high school too, whether that's Lone Peak or AFI. I'm sure Jeff can speak a little bit more to that. But again, if that's something that the board wanted to do, I think we study that in a little bit more detail and find out some of those variables and maybe talk to the community a lot more, have a few open houses and see what we can do to ameliorate some of those variables where they're making it hard for them to just attend Mountain Ridge.
Yeah, I think the challenge is if you that enrollment, you can keep the enrollment like it is. You're just probably going to need to supplement some FTEs there to be able to run all the programs.
Good point. I guess it's a question of supplementation.
Yeah,
If
you
that's
just say, you know what, it's
you're doing.
easier to just throw a couple FTEs or add a couple FTEs there.
Feels like that would be a whole less heartache and frustration for families, right?
Yeah, could be.
I think once you get to the 751 number, though, I think you might be throwing a little more than a couple FTEs.
For sure.
at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just, I think, what you want to consider. Okay, 10-12 study. Very healthy. I mean, you look at the average of all 4 of those schools. Enrollment is pretty stabilized at each of those high schools. That's a pretty good average right there. Any questions on that? Mark?
Just a comment that for years, Lone Peak has been really full, and we've been worried about it. It's nice to see it stabilizing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that will be welcome for those,
Sure will.
those who go there.
Yeah. Good comment. Okay. Recommended for Central District. Consider breaking ground on Cold Springs 2026, open 2027, or timeline for boundary change October 25, concluded February 2026. And this might be something that the board wants to wrestle with. If they want to consider doing that sooner, not sure what they want to do there, but I think that we really need to address North Point. That's one of our priorities to figure that out. They are growing pretty quick. We've got a solution for next year, possibly the year after. It'll be hard after that. Inverness, the reason why we want to do a boundary study, open a formal one right now, it's a lot easier to figure out the boundaries when there's not any development there. Once you get people moving in there, then it becomes really complicated and emotional. So it'd be good to figure that out tonight on what we want to do and start that, close it in May, and finalize that. Mountain Ridge boundary, you could open that September of 2025 and then maybe conclude in 2026 when the new board is situated and determine how they want to do that, or you can extend that out. Remember, you only need 30 days to make a boundary adjustment. That's the minimum. I'm not sure that that's efficient. I think you're going to want to make sure that your process is good, so that you're taking input from all of the public and getting those boundary meetings, and so making sure that you're taking all that information into consideration before you make that recommendation. But the minimum you need is 30 days. And then infrastructure, continuing to study the physical facilities, warehouse complex, fifth east complex, what you want to do with that lease. Yes?
I'm not familiar with Inverness. Is that a community?
It is.
It's
a
the
community,
east
it's in
side of
Belmar.
Center Street
Yeah.
above Tim Highway.
Okay.
So
That's-
just
I
by my
across
property.
the street from Belmont.
Yeah, sometimes we're naming a property, sometimes we're naming a community.
Right now,
Okay.
this one, this Inverness development is within the Belmont boundaries. And if all of that gets built out,
That's not gonna work.
it would be, yeah, really big for Belmont to be able to handle that enrollment.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, West District, 24 schools, 16 elementaries, 4 middle, junior highs, 2 high schools, 2 specialty schools, 24,503 student enrollment. Won't stay this way for long. It's going to continue to increase. Assets, transportation department out there. Really, the only thing you're missing for transportation is the service center, but we've been, talking about that for a long time. Horizon is a specialized school, and then you have ATEC West, which is also a specialized school. Properties: Mount Saratoga, Walker, Riley Farms. We're in the process of purchasing this right now, and we'll talk about that a little bit further in the presentation. Pole Canyon, Wander, and West Transportation. This is the one I was talking about. It's right by Westlake. It's just on the other side of the transportation center. Needs: physical facilities department, warehouse, which you combine these two. Transportation service center, which you've got the area for that to build, and then district office, we've also talked about leasing that for the city.
Question.
We list ATEC West as an asset, but currently it's just in a portable outside of Vista, that
Yeah,
Vista's gonna need its portable
You're right.
back.
I think if you look at infrastructure,
Okay.
right, I think it's one of those things where you've already got a school that's a part of there. You just need to find a
We
brick
have a
and mortar
homeless
school.
kind of
Yeah,
school.
more
So
than
is-
brick and mortar. I agree.
Is the 23,000 square feet is in there portables?
Is that right, Frank? Is that what that satellite?
Between the two of them, they're probably, are those 900 square foot classrooms?
I wonder if I just copied that ATEC one stuff and got ATEC. That's where that one came from. That's right. Yeah, I did change that one. Okay, good catch.
Probably around 6,000 square feet.
A little less than 22,000. Yeah.
Maintained.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if we look at the boundary study, you'll notice what's missing on there is declining enrollment. We don't have too many of those in the West. We do have a few that are gradually going down, but nothing like we're seeing across the other areas. So we'll do it by area. Saratoga area, 5 schools. Eagle Mountain area, 6 schools. And notice, not all of these schools are on here. There was one comment. If your school isn't mentioned in this study, it doesn't mean that we're not watching it. Some of the areas for consideration are those that are straddling 2 new districts. And we're unsure on whether there will be an annexation of some kind of those students into the current boundary that they're in, or if they move to the West District. If that's the case, then it's going to change. But I think that we'll know more about that in the next 6 to 8 months. And so until we know more about that, we just haven't talked about it, but we're watching those closely. So here are Saratoga area: Harbor Point, Harvest, Riverview, Thunder Ridge, Saratoga, Sage Hills, and Springside. You'll notice, there's some decline. Sage Hills, Riverview, you're seeing some. Harvest, just a little. Harbor Point, a little bit more, but again, in some of these areas, there's still room for development, so that could be just a temporary thing, and you might see that enrollment increase over time. But also, Thunder Ridge stands out, right? As one that's like, what are we going to do to their Springside? This is something else that we're watching very closely, depending on what that boundary adjustment does, because if Dry Creek is moving west, then Springside will quickly move up, and we'll need to address that. Eagle Mountain area, by the numbers: Black Ridge, Brookhaven, Cedar Valley, Desert Sky, Eagle Valley, Hidden Hollow. You'll notice Cedar Valley, you're like, why is that jumping up so fast, Eric? Julie?
That would be Firefly.
Correct, right. So currently, they're boundary to Firefly, and that's why you're seeing it. I don't know that the Cedar Valley site can really hold 540.
It cannot. It cannot.
Cami, thank you for clarifying that. So clearly, we're going to need to do something there, right? And then you've got Brookhaven that is climbing that we could do a boundary adjustment with, a neighboring school like Silver Lake. You've got Desert Sky, which clearly I think you're going to see in the program that we need to do something as quickly as possible for Desert Sky, and that will be one of our recommendations. But even mountain trails, I'll show you what those numbers look like close together. So here we've got 15 schools, and that would be the average if you just did a complete reboundary, which I know that sounds nutso and you wouldn't be able to do it, but still, you know, if you were able to average them out, you're looking in the 900s, and it wouldn't be that way for long. If you built another school, this is what your average would be, which is still pretty high. Even with building 2 schools, your average is still pretty high. You could almost go down to 20 schools, and then your still average is just right about where you want to be. So, some good things for the West to consider here. Now,
Eric, just a quick question.
Yes.
When you say the schools that are newer are bigger,
Yes.
like how much bigger? Like,
Frank, what's the square footage difference?
Probably 25 to 30,000 square feet bigger. So most of the schools in Orem were built around somewhere between 50 to 60,000 square feet, whereas our new models are 80 to 85,000 square feet.
okay, thank
When
you.
it's smaller, the hallways are smaller, it just feels more congested all the way around. Okay, so you look at Brookhaven, Thunder Ridge, and Silver Lake. You look at Brookhaven and Thunder Ridge, and we're seeing an increase. Current average with 3 schools, by fall of 2026, you're already in the thousands. 27, you're at 1050. Average with 4 schools, it's about right where you want to be, right? So we need to start looking for considerations in 2027, 2028, especially if you look at Thunder Ridge. I mean, they're getting up there in 2028. So Mount Saratoga is one of those properties that we're looking at as a future build. We need timing on that to be right. Okay, this area especially, Desert Sky, Mountain Trail, Cedar Valley, Eagle Valley, Hidden Hollow. These schools combined average with closing one school, contemplating Cedar Valley because it's not going to handle that kind of enrollment. This would be your new average with 4 schools. So 2027, you're looking at 1131. Again, if we're going to build, because we really do need to build, if we build on the Briley Farms property, then in fall of 2027, you're looking at 904, and that's with ideal averages. So I still think that you're going to, after a couple of years, going to want to build on probably your whole canyon side to bring some of those numbers down. 7 through 9 study, Frontier, Lake Mountain, Sage Canyon, Vista Heights. It's a good thing we're opening Sage Canyon in fall of 2025. You look at the averages, if we did, it would be quite a bit there. But with bringing in Sage Canyon, I think you'll notice that Frontier starts out lower, but then they're quickly going to grow because of the new development in that area. But still, the averages are very healthy there. Number of schools, 4. Again, it starts to climb though by fall of 2028. If you were to build another middle school, then these would be your new averages. If you build 6, then those would be your new averages too. So we're going to have to stay on top of the middle schools as well, even though we've just built a new one. Secondary study, Cedar Valley and Westlake. So you look at these 2 averages together, you look at the population of Westlake, and you understand the urgency for building the high school too. So with 2 schools, these are your average across the board. With that new high school built, that brings your average down considerably. So if we were to break ground on the high school this summer, open in the fall of 2028, then this would be your new average here. Recommended punch list, new builds, break ground ASAP on the Briley Farms, hopefully open by fall of 2026. We've looked at some stopgap measures there to address Desert Sky in the meantime, which I think has been very creative of board, senior leadership team, and the supervisors working together to try to figure out what that'll look like for a year while we get that built. Saratoga High School, if we were to break ground on that this summer, then the timeline is fall of 2028. Frank, we're good? Okay. Infrastructure study, and we're currently working on some of these. Again, I think as a capital planning department, as you guys come to us and say, will you research this, we're more than happy to. We went and visited Saratoga City's office space that they're looking at potentially leasing, and then Frank's team was able to do some mock-ups of what that might look like. Happy to do the same thing for the central or for the south for anything that they want us to look at. So sorry to volunteer you, Frank, but I know he's happy and willing to.
He likes field trips.
Yeah. Okay.
Satellites.
That's it.
What is satellites? Is that
Oh, satellites. So
classroom?
this contemplates, look, if we purchase 2 satellites with capital planning, can we position those in situations like if we weren't planning on building on Mount Saratoga right away, then maybe you put a satellite by Thunder Ridge to relieve some of that.
Just more classrooms.
Yeah. So it's just looking at relieving some of that growth until we're able to get some of those new schools built. If you get a satellite in place, you usually don't move that satellite until there's a need for it somewhere else. So we want to make sure that there's a need for it and that need will last for a while. But satellites are always a good option until you get that brick and mortar built. Allows you to flex a little bit. So again, I'm wanting to stay within my time limit. I've gone 5 minutes over. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you. Okay, we will transition now. Appreciate Scott Sumner, who oversees Land Trust. We've recently been in communication with the state as they looked over our Land Trust submissions and made some adjustments. And I think this training is part of our required state obligation. We'll let Scott explain that a little bit further.
Yeah, and let me log in real quick.
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
Thank you. Actually, I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. Yes, there's one of the requirements we have is there's a training each year. Each school has to do a principal assurance form at some point in the year, and then we also have to do one in the district that shows that we've done our job in training and met all the deadlines. So this presentation is to talk about the upcoming plans that are going to be given to you in the month of April. You're going to get them on April 22nd. Our school plans, they're due on April 1st. And so our schools are working very diligently to get their plans done for the upcoming school year. And there's a couple things we're going to go through, but Trustlands has really got a lot of deadlines, due dates, and they're great, but they're also, they're being a lot more, we're having to follow them a lot. And so we recently, Superintendent just mentioned we had an audit recently, and they pinpointed 3 areas that we have to make some good improvement in. And they actually had 4, but we made really great improvement in 1. That was our website. So if you look at our school websites, they sampled 10 schools and created a checklist meeting the criteria, and we did a very good job with our websites. But we had emphasized that last year with our schools, and Jody and I went through and audited each of the websites. We are open for volunteers if you guys want to do that with us next year. It was great to look through the websites. It was actually, we learned a lot and we would sometimes call out schools and say, hey, we're missing this. Said, no, it's there, you gotta click here, shake your arm, and then throw this over here, and you can get to it. Like, let's just put it out there so everybody can find it easily. And so our websites are doing great, and we'll keep auditing those and checking on those. But the other 3 areas were, one is expenses, and I'll work with Jason and his team to develop a process to identify how we can monitor our expenses better. We need to have something set up so there's a checkpoint when a card is swiped or a purchase is made, that we have a good system set up to make sure we're allocating the right things. The second one is we've got to have our signature page done. And so if those of you guys that served on SCCs, school community councils in the past, they used to do that digitally, right? So you'd submit your plan, and then that email would go to your email address and say, hey, your name, did you participate in the plan this year? Click yes or no, and then it was all digital. I don't know the rationale or reason, but they decided to go back to a paper form, and so we are implementing that. That actually changed a couple of years ago. We didn't know about it, and so we switched back to the paper form. So our plans are due on April 1st, and also the signature page from our trust lands, or our school committee council, are also due that day. And the other area that we have is, let's see, plans. I'll go through the presentation. We'll get to it. Okay. So the first piece. The Board of Education, part of the trust lands training for you is that we get to, this is a big responsibility. There's a huge dollar amount here for this, and we don't want to ruin this opportunity for our schools. Not that there's a threat of that by any means, but we want to make sure we take this, we're accountable to it, because being in the high schools, being in the schools, we are very dependent on this money to be able to operate and do the things that we do in the schools to help support our students, both our high academic kids and also our kids that need a little more time to support. This money is valuable to us, and it makes the difference in our schools. And so we say that you guys are the protectors of these funds to make sure that we're doing them the right way. Here's just an outline of what we're going to go over today. So 2024, 2025 timeline, the funding allocation for next year, appropriate expenditures, board responsibilities, and then the upcoming planned timelines. Feel free to stop me at any point, because you know me, I'll just keep going. And so I'll try to read the room here and make sure I'm not putting anyone to sleep. Okay. On this SEC timeline for this year, at the beginning of the year, part of our requirement is to give training to each of our schools. We did that at the beginning of the year, early September, where we had their SEC chairs with us and principals, and they attended a meeting in different clusters that we went as Jody and I went around the district to train. We gave them the essential training of what to do with expenditures, the same thing you're getting now, and asked lots of questions. But part of that was for, I had the groups raise their hands, how many were brand new principals in the building. We had a few, so they were just taking on the new role of trust lands, and that's a big task when you're not quite ready for it. It kind of hits you quickly, right? Principals in the room, it kind of hits you fast, and so you want to make sure you do it right. But I also asked how many new people in the room were new to the SEC chair. And we also had a lot of people in the room kind of like perfect. So this is for them as well. But this sheet that I gave to you, this little handout, you're going to see these on the screen. They're hard to read, so I gave a copy to you. The one area I want to pinpoint on this first recommended timeline with the maroon bottom portion. We are right now in that second to last paragraph of March and April. So some of the things are review trust lands plans. I know our supervisors are working with our schools. I've seen some emails go back and forth about communicating with the plans, make sure they're getting set up. I will say this a little bit later on too, but the writing of our plans has really become a good process for our schools, and it aligns so much better with our coherence map, with the data that we have in it, and the way we're looking at how we intervene with students, how we measure, how we have that greatest area of need by using data. It's really awesome to see our schools talk that language and use that really efficiently in the trust line plans. We see that when we read through them, is our schools are being versed in using evidence and the evidence-informed priorities as in the coherence map. So supervisor working with the trust lands, our trust lands plans are due, it says March 28th, that's just really April 1st, but we give them a little, hopefully they're aware of spring break, so they're not here on spring break, but they can if they want to. And then in May, we have a couple things set up there, but the only due dates are the plans coming up in the signature pages. Any questions up to this point in the timeline, James?
Can I just mention, it seems like last fall there was some problem with the scheduling of the training, so I'm not sure if you planning to do the same thing this year, but it might be worth looking at how to make that a little easier for the SEC presidents to get to.
Oh, for the schools?
Yeah.
Yeah, what we did is we provided a couple, and then, each cluster had their own. So we went to those and set them up there, but then we also went to school for those that couldn't make it. And so I think as long as we provide a couple options, hopefully we get there. Because you're right, we had a few that didn't show up.
No questions, but
yeah,
your communication must have been great because my principals have done a fabulous job, like ahead of time, hey, we're doing the plan on this day, and if you're not going to be here, can you please come in and sign it, make sure you get it by this deadline. So I feel like everybody is on the same page, and good job.
Awesome. Yeah, we've really tried to stress that, and our supervisors have done a great job, and our principals, they want to do a good job, so that's good to hear though. Okay, so this is the timeline we're following this year. This is the fun screen, and I will tell you, one of my first years that I was an assistant principal, I don't remember the exact amount. I have to go back and look at my notes if I can even have them, but we were under about $20,000 for the whole school, and we were thrilled because $20,000 back in 2005 is like you could hire a couple of aides, you could hire. I mean, it was helpful that we could do some things to help support our kids, but now the dollars have changed a lot. So here's our funding. This is district-wide, but this is our 2012-2013 allocation, $3.8 million. It's a huge amount. It's going to go up like crazy. 18-19, 7.7, 9.1, 9.9, 10.3. You can see, and this is all going right to our schools that they can use to help support students. So 23-24, last year, or this current year that we're in, we had 12.3 million. Any guesses what this year's allocation is coming up? Throw a number out. Let's make this low.
16.
16? Yeah,
We have a new law.
right now, what we know of, and it could go up, this is what the funding right now is, but it could change a little bit, but 13 million right now for our schools, and that's the number we have right now. So with that number, 13 million, that's $154 per student in our district, and that number has gone up over the last couple of years as well. And then our largest school currently is $480,000. Yeah.
Can I just do a shout out to our PTA moms, because it was a PTA mom who figured out that we were underusing our trust lands, that we weren't managing them properly. And Margaret Bird is a PTA volunteer who got that ball rolling, and we are the beneficiaries today.
To get more amounts coming in. Good for her. That's good to know. Okay. Appropriate expenditures. One of the things that we, in the audit that we were referring to is, that we've referred to is having the right expenditures. Now, we have processes in place, but there's a lot coming in and out of the district. So Trust Lands has some very specific criteria that we want to make sure that our schools are following, because if they don't follow it, the request is that we go back and make the journal adjustments and go back and pay from other accounts. But really, if the next page on here is your trust line appropriate expenditures, I'm just going to direct you to the middle of the page under Utah Code 53G7. This is a direct correlation to our coherence map, where you're looking at 4A. A council shall create a plan, create a program to use this allocation to implement a component of the school's teacher and student success plan. That's our coherence map. That is to have, one of the things that drove me crazy and this is my own fault, and I learned over the years, some of my first years as a principal, I remember getting my, this is going to age a little bit, but I get my binder. I had a PTA binder, and I had an SEC binder, and then I had a leadership binder. I don't have these binders anymore. I'm mostly digital now. But that binder, and it was like, where's my binder? Because I got to make sure we're following through with what we have in that group. But what I learned was we didn't have things totally aligned. So my PTA was having different conversations than my SEC. And my SEC is having different conversations with my leadership. Now, our schools are doing so much better to align their goals and their plans to what our coherence map is. So they're having similar conversations with PTA as with SEC and their leadership team. It's talking about the number one thing we're there for, which is student improvement. But the goals are the same. I didn't have a separate goal. We shouldn't have separate goals for PTA that we have separate for SEC or separate for our leadership team. They should be the goals we're working towards, which is our school priorities, which are school supporting student learning. And so that's been a huge shift of focus, is with the coherence map. It's really aligned our thinking. And if you guys, I know you've all been to the cluster meetings, but the conversation we hear back is our principals are reporting back. They're using the language. They're not just having to do something. They believe in it. They're working towards it because they see the impact it has on student learning when they have aligned priorities and they have evidence-informed priorities to make those decisions. And so we're identifying those critical area of need, and then identifying a course of action with a measurable outcome to help those schools. The next page, right in the middle of the page, this is what we're trying to prevent. And it's easy once you know, but if you're a new principal or if you're, we want to make sure that schools know. But part of the reasons why we have the expenditure piece in our improvement plan is because we had, of the 10 sample schools, they sampled schools from the 2021, 2023 school year. They pulled 10 random schools and checked everything from expenditures to goals to websites to everything. And of those 10 schools, we had a few schools that had some purchases that weren't aligned. I mean, they weren't like crazy outlandish purchases, but they were, like one school had purchased some furniture items. Well, furniture is, if you look at the list, you can't pay for construction, you can't pay for maintenance, facilities, overhead, furniture, security, or athletics. You can't buy anything along those lines. And so that's where I'll work with Jason's team to develop some type of plan to develop a system that we can check those before those are actually made. And that's, but the appropriate expenditure, I think this is something we'll just constantly review with schools to make sure nobody wants to do this wrong. But we need to make sure we review it so there's a quick answer on the top of their mind. Any questions on expenditures? Okay. One of your favorite parts. This is the responsibility of the board. And this sheet, if you turn your page to the next one, it's got the orange at the top. I will point your eyes to the top part. That's aligned also with the coherence map, but those top 4 bullets, maybe we'll just start here. Sarah, do you want to read the top bullet and we'll go Emily?
Does the plan address the academic priorities of the board? Will plan expenditures have a direct impact on the instruction of students in math, science, language arts, or other board priorities? If other core subjects are addressed, has the school demonstrated appropriate progress in the above areas?
Thank you, Sarah. And what I should have pointed out is on April 22nd, you're going to get a paper copy of all of your school plans that you're in charge of your area. But then I'll send you a digital copy of all the school plans so you can kind of look and see what's there, so you can have all access to all of them. But these are the things you're going to want to look for when you go through to approve them. Because on May 13th, the next board meeting we'll have you guys actually in a board meeting say, yes, we approve the plans. But there's some deadlines and dates there that I'll go over in just a minute. But if you have changes or suggestions, you need to get those to us by a certain time so we can get with the school and make sure they can make the changes. Some of those, if they're major changes, would require them to get with their SEC again and have another conversation.
I think there was a time when we actually approved each school plan with a button someplace. Are you doing that again? Or?
I still get to do that.
You get to do it.
Yeah.
We don't do it.
Once you, it's kind of an overarching swing, like, yes, we vote for all the plans. Then about that same second, I start going to the plan and say, accept, next, accept. It's still very slow, but it's one of the.
No, it's fine. I just
like a video game, right?
It seemed like before there was like a deadline we had to do to push all the buttons. So I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, we'll do that for you. But that way you've seen all the plans, and then we'll do the approval piece. But then it's registered on a board vote to make sure it's done. Okay, Emily, next one.
Is the goal measurable, student focused, and academic?
And this goes back right to our priorities. Is when we're looking at the priorities, they should be aligned with what they've been working on all year. So that could be a great question to ask schools: are the goals listed in trust lines the same things we're looking at as our school and our priorities? Are we looking at that? How are we measuring it? And are we putting our resources on things we've identified as important?
Does each goal clearly address the school's greatest academic need and improve academic excellence at the school?
Is it apparent that goals have been written to address an academic need identified through a data review, including an action plan to implement the goal?
Okay. Now, I'm going to skip down a few. There's the last 3. Jordan, if you want to read the third to last.
School land trust funds should benefit the students the same year they are allotted.
Yeah, this is the final area that I forgot to tell you about. It's the 10%. We need to make sure we don't spend more than 10%. We've gone through trainings. Our principals that were over 10% have watched the training video, and then we've set up their plans to make sure that we're reviewing with them so they don't go over the 10% again this year.
Meaning 10% carryover, right? 10%
carryover. Yeah. They can have 10% carryover, but it's that 10.1. We actually had one school at 10.1 carryover, and they were on the list. So you got to be under 10%. The final one is schools may carry up to 10%, like I just mentioned, and the last one is the signature page that we already mentioned before. But this is, as you get the plans, it takes a little bit of time to read through them. Like some of the, you've been in SEC before though, so you've seen the plans. They take a little bit of time, but this is a good sheet for you to look through and be able to talk through what those plans are. If you have questions, feel free to email me and say, hey, we've got a question about the school. We will be looking at them too, and so as the plans come in, I'm starting to monitor them, look through them. I'm checking them. I know our supervisors are too. So by the time we hit submit on May 13th, you'll have the supervisors look at, principals look at them, or SECs look at them, supervisors, Jody and I, the board, and then we submit them, and hopefully those are accepted by the state at that point. Final thing is, there's your deadlines. So April 1st, that's when our school plans are due. April 22nd is when the date that you will receive the plans for your area. And then just if you have any changes or suggestions, send them to me by May 8th so you can work with the school to make the changes. And then May 13th will be on board notes or board minutes to approve the plans. Quick quote there. Our very own Kate Ross.
Okay.
And this is questions answered. Anything I can further clarify?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you, Scott. Appreciate that work. Appreciate your continued work on land trusts and helping our principals align with those requirements. Board President King, Senate Bill 188.
Oh, was I supposed to talk about that? I thought you were talking.
I'm happy to talk about it. Then I'll talk about our counsel. Greg Brinkerhoff is also prepared to clarify, ask any questions. Our thought was to have a discussion, make sure that we are aware of those points. Many bills affected Alpine School District and other school districts across the state. Senate Bill 188 was something we paid particular attention to because of the reconfiguration going on and how it would impact.
So I'll just share a couple of pieces of it. It does impact elections a little bit. So the school board members will be elected on November 4th of this year. Then generally it takes 2 weeks to do the certification. The school boards are sworn in the Tuesday after that. So it allows new school boards to get started pretty quickly. That was an intent to make sure that there wasn't a delay in moving forward with making decisions. Another piece on the tail end of that is that if you are a school board member and the district is going to cease to exist within a year of your term ending, your term is extended for that time frame. The purpose behind that was that we didn't want a situation where potentially all of the assets and liabilities have been divided, and then you have a new group of people who try to upend those things right before that is changing over. So some of that was very intentional, and it clarifies a couple of things. There were several pieces in the original bill about directors, advisory committees, all of those things were removed. There was also a piece about city councils being able to trigger it. That was removed. Biggest thing that we were really focused on was the impact to employees. So basically all the employees who are assigned to a school on allocation date stay at that school and in that district. Salaries stay the same. It also was an extension of it, also covers things like step and lane and the early retirement incentive. Those are protected for 1 year after allocation date. You keep your tenure. And then there was also a concern for individuals not assigned to schools. So essentially, if you're not an at-will or provisional employee, which you wouldn't have protections under ASD as an at-will or provisional employee anyway, or on the admin schedule, those people were excluded, but everyone else, anyone who's not assigned to a school as of 6 months prior to the allocation date, which is January 1 of 2027, they are given a written employment offer, so everyone will be offered employment and they can choose whether or not they accept that or not. It included, another piece was that gives a pathway. One of the challenges previously was that you could not bond at all once a district split was initiated. So it opened up options for lease revenue bonds, GO bonds. The other thing that was nice is that it said that if an area that becomes its own district had previously approved a GO bond, so for the 2022 bond cycle, that would have been the west side because it did pass in that area, that the least revenue bond cap, which was passed last year about you can only spend $200 million every 3 years, did not apply to that since those people had already approved it in a GO bond cycle. One of the things that's really nice about that is when we move forward with the Saratoga Springs High School and the Briley Farms Elementary School, it frees up a lot of funding for Central and South that does not count against that $200 million cap, because if not, the West would have really consumed and eaten up the entirety of that. So it gives options for how we want to move forward. I don't know, what else do you want to cover?
Yeah, this is the, I think you summarized it very well. This is the summary that we sent out to employees. You covered all of those points as I looked through that. So,
And the county is voting on the maps tomorrow. So we should know tomorrow, after the county votes, what the school board seats will be for all 3 new districts.
the governor has signed this bill, so it is
He has.
law.
And so with this SB 188, with the $2 million, 200,000.
$200 million.
$200 million.
So we can't do anything with
I know, it's like
$200,000. $200 million cap.
Is that still the 3-year retroactive?
So it's in any 3-year period.
Okay.
So it wouldn't probably apply to, we couldn't get like Sage Canyon to roll off of that, but moving forward. So as other things have rolled off, we figured we had about $150 million that we had talked about filling with the high school. And now because the high school won't apply for that, if South or Central wanted to pursue a lease revenue bond, it frees up that $150 million for them to choose to access that if they want to.
And the Sage Canyon will roll off next March, so we'll be,
Yeah.
because it was March of 23.
Yeah.
Craig, anything else on Jason?
Only other things that I saw or wanted to just point out is it contemplated our CTE homes. There was some contention about those a little bit, so we're allowed to continue that program. And then there's also some built-in funding to the school districts each January 1st that gives them some funds to start operating costs.
And we have contemplated that in this year's M&O budget, setting that aside. Our understanding is those will be in, and Jason will manage those, and then each district will have a fund that they can draw from on that.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I do appreciate a lot of things that were changed in this bill that were not very good, and I appreciate those being taken out. At the same time, there's some things that were taken out that I wish had not been taken out, including the reimbursement clause for the remaining new reorganized district. And I also want to point out that there's a shall language with the LRB, which is pretty strong. I really don't know how our legislature can do that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and the bill did receive unanimous support, so it was highly supported.
I just have never heard of a legislature requiring a board to take an action like this, so, especially when it results in taxation, so.
There won't be any change to the taxes regarding that.
Can
An
you
LRB is an LRB.
Can you touch on just a little bit, as far as future district splits in the
Yeah.
state? So we're talking that would be a citizens initiative,
So
not
there's-
ever a district's initiative.
So there's 3 ways that it can be split. It can be split through a citizens initiative, a city initiating it, or an interlocal initiating it. And the interlocal process is the process that the 2 interlocals pursued with the ASD split. Joylyn and I worked very, very hard to get a district option in where it was a straight board to ballot option, and that was in SB 221 last year, and it lasted for about 6 weeks before it was removed. Is it something that can be added in the future? Yes, it was not something in the grand scheme of things that was going to be possible this year. I think that it's a possibility in the future, but it just was not a possibility this
And so
legislative
when I read
session.
the bill, isn't it something like if there was a citizens initiative and it failed, then the next year you couldn't do, you had to wait
No.
2
You had to wait
years.
So you have to wait
right?
2 years. Originally, the bill many moons ago had a 4-year gap, but then there was pressure to flip it to 2 years, and that changed. There was actually some language in there that could have allowed, the original one allowed, like, for example, a city to trigger a split without the vote of the people. I will say it was a highly collaborative process, and when we pulled in municipalities to have conversations about, what do you want to do moving forward, what does everybody support, no one that we spoke with was actually supportive of having that option. So it was pulled out to make sure that it's always left up to the voice of the people to take that vote and decide. So, yeah.
I think we put on our information we sent out here that the legislation refers to creation date and allocation date. And I think it's important to understand what is meant by those. Creation date, the day the voters approve that, November 5th, 2024. Allocation date is the day that the new districts start operating as new districts, July 1 of 2027. So the legislation refers to those dates in many of the statutes associated with that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Just going back to the school board being allowed to create it, they've reserved that section of code.
It's still reserved and
it's
set
still
aside,
there.
yep.
That might hint to their feelings about putting it there, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that.
Well, there just is no option where everyone gets to vote, and there's also still no guarantees, no guardrails in place for creating disadvantaged school districts. So I think those are two problems that should be addressed.
Anything else, Craig? Jason, any comment on that?
Election day.
From communications, this is what we sent out. I don't know that we anticipate any additional communication. I mean, we've got the clarity that we're going to have. I think things will continue to move forward. We anticipate the kind of the next phase of this really will be those the county finalizing those board areas, and then individuals. I believe it's June second that they need to declare, and then if there is the need for a primary, it's August
12th.
12th.
Mm-hmm.
And then once those boards are elected and seated, then they will start that process, and lots of things will start occurring at that point. We have at this point shared our asset determination with all 3 interlocals, as well as the Office of Legislative Auditor General, and we have not heard any feedback that they need any adjustments or changes to that. So we'll kind of continue to study variables within Alpine School District and possible recommendations for future boards to consider.
I think it's also notable that where formerly they were saying there was no change of programs or boundaries or closure, now it's just closure.
That's correct. So it doesn't require a boundary change, program change, or bus routes to, that remains our decision to make.
Which is a good thing, so.
And there were some changes in terms of what powers and responsibilities interlocals had in the interim between now and when new boards are elected.
Yes.
Anything else on Senate Bill 188?
I think we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
For the time and
so we're going to
attention.
go ahead and adjourn, and then we will be in the board meeting at 6 o'clock.
We'd like to welcome you to the Alpine School District Board meeting on March 25th, 2025, and the time is now 6:02. We're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be, we'll invite Craig Brinkerhoff up to lead us in that.
Testing? Test.
We'll now have an inspirational thought or reflection by Tiffany Miller.
See if we can get this to stay in there. Hi. Okay, here's my thought. I'm going to start with a quote and then give a little thought about it. When we seek for connection, we restore the world to wholeness. Our seemingly separate lives become meaningful as we discover how truly necessary we are to each other. I was able to direct the school musical at Thunder Ridge this year and last year and the year before. And I just have found that something that's so important to me in directing is connection with the kids, them connecting with each other, them connecting with the play. And that's one thing we try to teach them is how are you connecting with the character? How are you connecting to the story? But one thing I thought was even cooler at Thunder Ridge was that, and more powerful, is how much the school and the students and the staff came together and connected over the play. They all supported each other. The staff wore T-shirts every opening night and a lot of the other nights. They sold candy as candygrams for the students. They came and saw the play multiple times. They had an assembly for the play. And as I walked the halls, it was really cool to see lots of the different kids talking about how they loved seeing their fellow students in the play. And I really loved that the connection that the play brought to the school as a whole. And I feel that at Thunder Ridge quite frequently, how they all connect over all the different activities. And I know that is a big priority of the administration, is to help the kids and the students and the staff feel connected with one another and with what they're doing. So there you go.
Thank you, Tiffany. As a Board of Education, it is important for us to recognize various accomplishments made by students, employees, and patrons from throughout Alpine School District. As we honor these individuals and groups this evening, we acknowledge the families and others who have helped them achieve their goal. Thank you for the support you have offered to those we recognize at this time. We appreciate your attendance tonight. After the recognitions are finished, I'll give you the secret signal, and you are welcome to leave if you have other obligations this evening. We're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Board Member Bateman to give us our You Make a Difference recognitions.
Okay, we would love to have Jamie Southam come up. Jamie fosters a fun, engaging classroom with hands-on experiences while staying organized and handling challenges with grace. Her positive attitude, kindness toward others, perseverance, and dedication leave a lasting impact on her students, team, and everyone she meets. And now we'll invite Andrea Salvania. Andrea has a gift for making everyone, especially children, feel safe, valued, and loved. She balances academics with mindfulness, ensuring her students leave with both a wealth of knowledge and a love for learning, while also supporting her coworkers, parents, and everyone she meets with kindness and care. Christy Washer. Christy is a dedicated, kind, and dependable educator who always goes the extra mile for both students and teachers. She consistently shows kindness through her willingness to help, her positive attitude, and the genuine care she brings to every interaction, creating a supportive and encouraging environment where students thrive. Emma Simmons. Emma is an incredible asset to our Thunder Ridge community, bringing dedication, skill, and a consistently positive attitude to everyone she meets. Despite the challenges she faces daily, she remains kind, gentle, and unwavering in her love for her students, making a lasting impact wherever she goes. Megan Barrick. Megan is a dedicated and kind-hearted leader who cares deeply about our students, their success, and supporting the school in any way she can. Through her involvement in the PTA and beyond, she consistently brings a positive attitude, a collaborative spirit, and a willingness to serve, making a lasting impact on our school community. Brittany Edwards. Brittany is a shining example of positivity and support, always bringing a happy, collaborative spirit and a great attitude to everything she does. As one of the top volunteers in the school, she donates countless hours each week, helping students in several classrooms, and her kindness and dedication make her an invaluable asset to the school community.
We will now turn some time over to Principal Jeff Shirley to do our student recognitions.
Welcome, everybody. Let's hear it for Reggie, 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 Reggie. All right. Let's start off every assembly with the kids' excitement. So we really appreciate that Reggie joined us today in his best green tie. So Thanks, Reggie. We really appreciate this opportunity to celebrate some of the students that we have at Thunder Ridge. There were so many that came to mind, it was really hard to pick just a few, but we appreciate that many of them made it tonight, and we want to recognize each one. So when I say your name, come up first from kindergarten, Finn Williams. Great job. Give Reggie. Finn works hard, tries her best, never gives up, even when things are tricky. She has a positive attitude and helps make our class and school a happy place. Great job, Finn. Next, from first grade, Sophie Isbell. Sophie has a wonderful attitude and is a hard worker. She is always striving to do her best and enjoys learning. Sophie is a model example of kindness. Way to go, Sophie. And second grade, Scarlett Nicolette. Come up, please. Scarlett loves school and always puts her best effort into her work. She is kind, positive, and stands up for others, always ready to help. Despite being a bit shy, Scarlett speaks up when needed and inspires others with their leadership and compassion. Great job, Scarlett. From third grade, Max Anderson. Max. Max is kind to all and wants to make the world a better place. Max goes out of his way to make sure that everyone has a friend and feels included. He is always positive and trying to make a difference. Great job, Max. Fourth grade, Ava Randall. Ava, come up. Ava is incredibly hardworking. She does everything she can to make sure that everything she turns in is high quality work. Each day, Ava is looking for a new way to learn and improve. She actively seeks out things she can do to help herself grow. In addition to being a respectful and driven student, Ava is a kind and great friend. She always makes sure that others are included, and she is there for anyone that needs a friend. She shows honesty and advocates for others to ensure that everyone is treated nicely and with respect. She always shows kindness and how much she cares for others. Great job, Ava. Fifth grade, Soren Miller, come up. Soren is always working so hard and is such an amazing leader. He is the student that leads and does what is right when no one is looking. He is always kind to others and thinks of others before himself. When Soren comes into the room and changes the atmosphere, it becomes positive and loving. Great job, Soren. Sixth grade, Navy Ward, come up. Navy is kind to everyone she meets, always bringing happiness and laughter to those around her. A hardworking and studious learner, Navy gives her best in everything she does and always has a smile on her face. Great job, Navy. And one more student, Jack Ousts. Jack, come up if Jack's able to, was Jack able to be here? Awesome, there he is. Jack, way to go. Excellent job. Jack is a friend to everyone. He is so patient and kind to all students in our class and really goes above and beyond to help everyone as best possible. He tries his best in both his academic work and outside the classroom. Jack has made a high impact on our class and is such an amazing student to be around. Way to go, Jack.
Principal Jeff Shirley will go ahead and give you a little more time to give us a school overview.
All right, welcome everybody, and Raptor Nation out there. This is the person behind the voice, hey Raptors, and then go Raptors. So great to be here. So it's my privilege to represent Thunder Ridge Elementary. It's an amazing school, and just want to give an overview of it. And this is such a great opportunity. I love when these opportunities come up. So it's so awesome to see such a great turnout from our community, but just from the district as well. So thanks for your support. In 2011, Thunder Ridge Elementary was established as the 4th elementary school in Saratoga Springs. Each year, Thunder Ridge embraces a group of students and families within our care with a determination to make the coming year the best possible experience for children. Our mission statement is we work together to ensure high levels of learning and growth for all students so we can thrive and give back to the world. And our vision statement is empowering students to excel, persevere, and face the future with confidence. Thunder Ridge Elementary is proud to exemplify excellence at work through our shared commitment to being exceptional teammates, striving for our best, and leading with kindness. Our vibrant school community is anchored in collaboration, creativity, and a strong dedication for student growth. One of our standout highlights is our annual school musical, brought to life by our Arts Council made up of teachers, parents, and volunteers, delivering a Broadway-level experience for all of our students and community. As a school community, we strive to provide a safe and enjoyable environment for all, maintaining a positive attitude while treating others with kindness. We are clear and consistent in our communication, collaborate effectively with positive contributions, and share responsibility across all areas. Our focus remains on meeting the learning needs of all students while ensuring we stay data-driven and focus our efforts on the essential standards. At Thunder Ridge, we talk a lot about kindness. We believe that working together, showing kindness, and doing our best each day helps us create a place where everybody can thrive. This year, we focused a lot on being great teammates and supporting each other in all that we do. We are dedicated to ensuring the safety of our students, and we just want them to have a great experience each day. And whoever enters our building, we hope they feel of the care that we have for them. I wasn't supposed to do this. So Thunder Ridge continually promotes, fosters, and embraces kindness in all that we do. We've been, we've been lucky to partner with several of some agencies like the Jimmer Fredette Foundation, the Power of Kind Foundation, and the Stand for Kind Foundation, because we really believe in supporting each other. And we're focused on just, again, making a great experience for everybody. Here are some quotes that I questioned a few students today about what they liked most about the community and the school. Isaac Hepworth said, I like Thunder Ridge because the teachers are so nice and we have fun assemblies. Brittany Richards said, I like that we talk about being kind and spending time with friends. Macy Richards said, I like that people here are kind and we do fun things like having Mr. Shirley sleep on the roof and throw candy from the roof. That was just a one-time thing, by the way. And it was in November, actually, so luckily we had some electric blankets. Brady LaFavor said, I like coming to Thunder Ridge every day because I get to play with my friends. Dallin Bitter said, I like how the teachers are always nice and always try to help you. Rahi Rigamoto said, I like lunch recess because you get to play games with friends and spend time with them. Kyler Southam said, I like that all the teachers try to help whatever they can and do the best they can to help us. Grayson Butler said, I like that everybody is kind and because Principal Shirley is the best. He actually said that, by the way. I'll give him some extra brownie points tomorrow. He says, all the students are kind. Hallie Henson said, we have amazing teachers who try to help our students however they can. Zoe Fowler said, I like that everyone is so nice to me and I've made lots of friends here. And a couple staff members, Jenna Berry said, I like that Thunder Ridge is a place of kindness and empathy. Teachers and students know their concerns will be listened to and taken seriously. Thunder Ridge is a place where students care deeply and teachers care deeply about coming to school each day. And Teachers advocate for student growth. The faculty is especially friendly and eager to help each other. I love working here. And just to close, to add to this, love Thunder Ridge, incredible community. Each day you're greeted by smiling people that care. And they care what's best for everyone, not just themselves. We've got a great community that shows tremendous support. I see it each day and the volunteers that we have coming in. It's just incredible to see. So our commitment goes beyond academics. We're focused on equipping students with knowledge, skills, character traits to help them become better people and to build a bright and successful future. Our students consistently demonstrate determination, perseverance, and most importantly, kindness towards one another. The staff work tirelessly, tremendous staff that really works hard and cares for our students, because we want every child to feel like they are part of the Raptor family. And remember that not only the growth they've experienced in all the years that they've had at Thunder Ridge, but the way they feel each day they come to school. One of my favorite quotes is from Leo Hart, and it captures the spirit of Thunder Ridge. It says, "The truest kindness a teacher or someone that works with students can offer is not merely guiding a child through their hardships, but in nurturing the resilience that empowers them to not only endure, but to flourish beyond their wildest dreams." This is the belief at the heart of everything that we do at Thunder Ridge Elementary. Thank you very much. Students, don't tell anybody that I was crying, okay? All right.
Thunder Ridge is a place full of kindness where connections are made. Thank you, the Thunder Ridge community, for coming and celebrating with us tonight. This is your signal. If you have other obligations tonight and would like to slip out quietly, you may do so. We have now set aside up to 30 minutes for public comment. This opportunity is allocated for patrons in Alpine School District. A sign-up sheet was available prior to this meeting, allowing up to 10 patrons the opportunity to speak. Those who were unable to sign up before all the slots were filled can submit written comments at alpineschools.org school board. Or by scanning the QR code in the library. We'll direct you to that form. As you are called up, please introduce yourself by stating your name. You will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. While the board does not engage in a discussion during the public comment period, they may arrange for a staff member to communicate with you later. Personnel issues are not appropriate discussion items and for an open meeting environment. If you have a personnel concern, please contact a member of the administration or put your concerns in writing and address it to the Board of Education. So we'll start tonight with Aubrey Bentley, and she will be followed by John Gadd.
All right, hello. My name's Aubrey Bentley, and I'm probably gonna cry, so just let you know. I'm a mom to a vibrant, intelligent, and joyful 8-year-old autistic child who's in the autism class at Harbor Point Elementary. His teacher is new. She just started in January, and in that short time, I've seen my son skyrocket in growth and development. She's a phenomenal teacher who loves the kids, and she brings light and security and direction to the classroom. The same can be said for the aides that she has in the class. They show so much love and attention to our kids. And I came here today to share some concerns with the administration and district not listening to their pleas for support. A fellow mom recently became an aide for the autism classes, and she reached out to the rest of us this week to inform us that we've been kept in the dark about the lack of support that our kids and teachers are receiving, and it's gotten so bad that his teacher is not planning on coming back after the spring break. They need more help in the classroom. They've been given empty promises for help, and it's gotten to a point where the second teacher is quitting in 1 year. There are some children in the class that have higher support needs, and it's causing large disruptions in the education of everyone in the room. And from what I understand, there's a child who's been having escalating support needs that has resulted in staff being required to remove the other 10 children from the classroom every time they have a moment that requires extra support due to self-harm and inappropriate bodily exposure. This could be avoided if this child received the one-on-one aid that they need and deserve. And I'm not here to blame the child. They deserve a quality education with the support they need just as much as every other child does. I'm here to demand that the district allocate the appropriate amount of funds necessary to get the extra hands in the classroom. My son is 8 years old, and this is his 6th school within the district. If she quits, the next teacher will be his 8th teacher. I'm tired of having to spend so much time trying to convince people in power that he and other children like him are full people who deserve the same standard of education as their peers. And another thing that the parents are deeply concerned about is the lack of transparency. We've been kept completely in the dark about these struggles because the teachers and aides aren't allowed to talk to us about what's been going on. The only reason we've learned about it is because of the unique position of the aide who is also a parent of a child in the classroom. Many of our children are nonverbal and they can't communicate when disruptions and struggles are happening in the classroom, and if we had known, we would have been here fighting for them months ago. Alpine's the largest district in the state, and it's completely unacceptable to have the SPED classes being left behind. These kids and teachers deserve the support they've been promised, and we, along with other parents in the district, will not stop fighting until our kids get the support they deserve and are entitled to. They need more aides in the classroom. It's a safety issue as well as an academic one. And if the district and state believe that our kids are worthy of an education like they say that they are, then we need to start seeing the fruits of that immediately, because losing another teacher who's phenomenal due to the lack of support is just unacceptable, and will leave us yet again with a classroom that is unable to function for the rest of the year, and our kids don't deserve that type of disruption again. We need more aides, and we need transparency. Thanks.
While John's coming up, we do invite Mrs. Bentley for you to meet in the hall, and we'll have an administrator out there with you.
Good evening. My name is John Gadd. I live in Pleasant Grove. I want to talk tonight about the lease revenue bond that you guys announced yesterday, as well as SB 188. So yesterday you guys put out a notice that you have an intent to issue a lease revenue bond for $238 million to assist the new West District with 1 high school and 1 elementary school. This board has voted to raise our property taxes 11 times in the past 7 years. We're sort of being taxed to death by you. And just this last October, you talked about doing a lease revenue bond of $86 million to work on this new high school, but somehow you've tripled that number, and you've raised it as of yesterday to $238 million. Now, I understand that this is in connection with SB 188, which is a bill that's been signed by the governor, and it deals with district splits. And the problem is, when that bill started out, it actually had a clause in there that said that if a bond is issued during this interim period before a split, and it only benefits one of the new districts, then that new district has to pay all the payments on the bond. But this bill was amended 5 times, no doubt because of heavy lobbying by certain of you, maybe all of you, but definitely certain of you on the west side. And you changed it, and you got the legislature to change it so that it says now if you issue a bond, all the districts have to pay for it. The South District, the Central District, and the West District will have to pay proportional share of the bond payments, is the language from the new bill. And so my understanding of that is you're issuing a new bond, you've tripled the amount for $238 million, it's gonna benefit the west side, but now the South District and the Central District get to help pay for that bond. For those of you who lobbied for those changes, shame on you. And shame on you for raising our taxes now, trying to raise our taxes for the 8th time in 11 years. These tax increases hurt so many families in this district. Seniors on Social Security, people with disabilities who live on disability income, all the children that you say you care about, their mothers and fathers can't afford these tax increases. And neither can the teachers that you say you care about. They can't afford the tax increases on these homes. So here's what I recommend, and I understand that you lobbied the legislature to say that this bond shall issue. I understand that you have to do the bond because of the language that you argued for. But it doesn't say how much the bond has to be, and it also doesn't say when you have to do it. So I would recommend you to tap the brakes on this bond, do it for a lot less than $238 million, and do it at the last possible moment so that the district who it benefits, so you minimize the impact to the South District and the Central District for money that's going entirely to the West District. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll now have Matthew Christensen come forward.
Hello, board. Thank you. Okay. Hello, board. Thank you for letting me come to speak to you guys today. My name is Matthew Christensen. I'm a student at BYU. I'm currently taking a class where we are studying decision-making in small groups, and I decided to pick the Alpine School Board. And one of the things that I'm interested in studying is how public participation affects decision-making of elected officials. And so to the people that have spoke, I hope you'd be willing to answer some questions or talk to me for a minute, and then I'm hoping to connect with each of you virtually, like over email, to ask you some questions about your experience in the school board and how public participation has affected your decisions. Thank you.
I want to thank those that spoke tonight. This does conclude our public comment section of our board meeting. We will now move to routine business, and we'll turn the time over to Dr. Shane Farnsworth.
Thank you. Board Member Lincoln, appreciate that. You have 2 items of routine business that you have received, and I recommend that you accept the routine business.
I move that we accept the routine business.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member King and a second by Board Member Peterson. Is there any discussion to the motion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The first resolution, discussion action item, is Resolution 2025-005. The board needs to express their intent to issue a lease revenue bond and hold a public hearing related to the lease revenue bonds, and I recommend that you approve that resolution. We'll also ask Jason Sundberg, our business administrator, appreciate the work that he's done with our bond counsel and financial advisors. Appreciate them being here as well to answer any questions the board might have with respect to Resolution 2025-005.
I move that we approve Resolution 2025-005, expressing our intent to issue lease revenue bonds and hold a public hearing relating to the lease revenue bonds.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member King and a second by Board Member Bateman to, was it Ada? I'm sorry. Board Member Wilson, to have Resolution 2025-005 expressing intent to issue lease revenue bonds. Do we have any discussion to the motion?
So I wanted to correct some misinformation. I think there's some misunderstanding about SB 188 and some of the pieces behind it. So when it says proportional, that does not mean proportional to tax base. So the proportional piece was that if you take out a lease revenue bond, the area that benefits from it takes the entirety of the debt. So if you would take out a lease revenue bond and the West is taking 100%, they would take 100% of the debt in a split. If you issue a lease revenue bond and one area takes 80% and the other area takes 20%, those would be the debt amounts associated proportional to what they receive in that bond. And I think that some people are misinterpreting proportional to mean proportional tax base, and that is not accurate. So I want to make sure that that clarity is out there. It is accurate that it does say shall. This is not just for a high school, and the 238 is the very cap of what we would do. So I want to make sure that this is not just one project. And the comment about we tried to do a lease revenue bond for like, 86 million, part of this has to do with how much money we have been allowed legislatively to take. And part of SB 188 also clarifies that an area which had previously passed a GEO bond in their area, and the West Side did in 2022, it no longer, whatever they take out for those approved projects, it no longer counts towards a $200 million cap. And so it actually frees up dollars for South and Central to utilize if they so choose. So I just wanted to correct, I think, some of the misunderstandings associated with the lease revenue bond, because I think there's a misinterpretation of code. And so I want to make sure that I state very publicly that because the West is intending to lease revenue bond for the high school and for potential elementary schools, that the entirety of that debt in a split is not split based on taxable value like it normally is with GEO bonds. It is with the understanding that the West will take 100% of the debt in the split. So I just want to make sure that I clarify that, because I think there has been a lot of misunderstanding about what the wording actually means.
I seconded this bill because I want to acknowledge that there is a great need for the build of a high school and an elementary in the West. They are struggling with very high enrollments, and I just want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that in the Senate Bill 188, is my understanding that between the time of the issuing of the bond and the allocation date, that Alpine School District will be paying a certain amount. That is an amount I'm willing to pay for the children who need, the students that need these buildings. I just wonder, Jason Sundberg, if you want to give some further clarification there. Is my understanding correct?
Sorry, can I jump in really quick, Ada? I apologize. I also want to clarify, this will not require a property tax increase. I also want to clarify that piece, that the funding is available and will not require us to raise taxes. So I just want to make sure, thank you for your comments, but I want to make sure that that was also an incorrect piece of information that was shared.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct on that. And the what I was thinking on that too, the 86 million was a different plan that happened pre-November with. It should be there. Yeah, I just need to swallow it there. Yeah, so the 86 million was the maximum we could have done back then because of the lease revenue bonds we had done in the past. And so that bill that had passed last session that said you can only do 200 million over a 3-year look back is eliminated with this part that can be done here. Yeah. Yes, and the funds are available because we have that building fund, because the last 2 August we've done truth and taxation to be able to build up a building fund, and so there's money to be able to make those payments. And what we've learned too is when the high school will be finished and occupied in August of 28, so the first principal payment won't be until March of 29, and so it'll be an interest only to be able to keep that principal at the same amount for the first 3 years. So the first 2 years while Alpine is still together.
So Jason, just to restate what you said to make sure we're all understanding, is that this particular LRB is not going to be funded with taxpayer money, property taxes, but we have money set aside in our capital funds to carry the interest for 2 years instead of the principal balance, which will be owned and taken care of by the West when we split.
The principal will go to the West after the split, and they'll have a year, but they're still making interest payments. But the interest payments in the meantime will be paid with property tax, but it's already established.
It's already there.
It's not an increase
Right.
from what it currently is.
And I just also want to say, I guess just to make sure that the public understands that, this board, the elephant in the room is, yes, we were divided on a split. But in terms of taking care of students, I feel like we are united and resolved and committed to the success of all students in all areas and making sure that we're setting up every district with success so that the children will be able to succeed and do well in their classrooms. And the intent of our board is to make sure that we are creating 3 strong districts and that together we are unified and committed in that process.
I think a further clarification is often asked, well, why not just delay until the new district is formed? The 3-year build time on a high school necessitates that being started as soon as possible so that it can be in place for 2028. That's our intention, to open that in 2028 to relieve the overcrowding of the secondary schools in that area.
I also want to add, as we're working towards 3 strong districts, I guess I also need to swallow my microphone. My analogy that I like to think about, and this only applies to those of us who have had to learn how to drive a manual transmission, is that we're shifting gears here. We got to take our foot off the clutch and hit the gas at just exactly the right rate, or else we're going to stall out. And this is a way that we need to be continuing to hold down on the clutch, is making sure that we are making choices that create 3 strong districts so that all kids can be served well, and that we're not doing any harm to any of the areas. And while this does work on the high school, we have other needs, other capital needs that we're going to work on over the next couple of years so that all of the 3 districts are going to start out really strong. And this is just one of those steps.
I have further comment unless somebody. I do believe that I was one of those that advocated for a may language instead of a shall language in the bill, in Senate Bill 188. But because of the shall language, what we're doing here today is kind of perfunctory because we've been required to do it. I believe that this board would have acted even if the language had been a may. And I just want to register that in public, that I think that our legislature has overreached its authority in reaching down into the business of a local board and telling us what we are required to do.
Any additional or discussion? With that, Board Member King made a motion, and it was seconded by Board Member Wilson to approve Resolution 2025-005, expressing intent to issue a lease revenue bond and hold a public hearing relating to that lease revenue bond. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say nay. And that vote carries unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have Resolution 2025-006, a joint resolution by Provo City School District and Alpine School District for school district boundary transfer and adjustment.
I'd like to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yes, thank you. We recommend that you take action on this. This is something that's been in the works for a while. There are, as you're aware, there are boundary adjustments between Provo School District and Alpine School District that need to be made so that we are within city limits, and there's part of the Provo District that would come to Alpine, part of Alpine that would go to Provo District. We appreciate their work with us to address this, something we want to get taken care of before the reconfiguration. So we recommend the board taking action on this.
I'd like to move that we pass Resolution 2025-006, joint resolution by Provo City School District and Alpine School District for school district boundary transfer and adjustment.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Board Member Wilson and a second by Board Member King. Is there any discussion to the motion?
Yes. This affects my seat area, and it's been a problem that we've recognized for quite some time. I appreciate the work that Jason and his colleague have done in the Provo School District to get this straightened out. I've asked about the financial impact of this, and Jason has assured me that this is like less than $1 million back and forth. We will be receiving less than Provo School District is receiving. If you looked at the parcels, there's many more parcels going to Provo School District than we are receiving. I don't know, when I said less, maybe I misspoke. We don't really know, correct?
Yeah,
What
I
the-
can share.
what the-
So the main area that's Alpine's been receiving the property tax is around Provo High School. So that area was annexed into Provo after the district boundaries of Provo City School District, and so it fell into county land, which was part of Alpine School District. So for many years, even though all of the residents there most of the residents send their students to Provo School District schools, then Alpine has received the property tax. But the parcel numbers, there's many there because a lot of the lots there are 0.15 acres or 0.2 acres, a lot in that area, smaller starter homes. The part that's transferring from Provo to Alpine is more the part that's just west of Riverside Country Club, that's Orem. And a lot of those lots are 2 or 3 acre lots that may be, 5 or 6, 7 times more in value than the other lots there. So although there are a lot more in number on the parcels, when you add up the total, they get pretty close.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, the west side of Riverside, off Carterville Road.
Is there any additional discussion? Seeing no additional discussion, Board Member Wilson motioned, and it was seconded by Board Member King, Resolution 2005-006, a joint resolution by Provo City School District and Alpine School District for school district boundary transfer and adjustment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That vote passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have ineligible bus routes, and we'll turn the time over to Dr. Farnsworth to introduce that.
Thank you. This was discussed today in our capital meeting. The bus routes, determination of bus routes is a staff decision, so we wanted to bring it here for your awareness. The staff in the past have recommended, because of driver shortage and double running other schools, we've recommended that we scale down the ineligible routes. And so I appreciate Eric Woodhouse and Joe Hayes being here. They will run through a brief overview of that just to make the board aware of that, but no action is required at this time. The board could make a recommendation to the staff, but the staff's recommendation is to move towards the elimination of the ineligible routes that affect our secondary students.
Thank you, Superintendent, and appreciate the opportunity to share some recommendations from our Transportation Department. And we'll start just by a brief reminder that there is a difference between what the law says as far as what we are, responsible to transport with students. Once again, at the secondary level, it's students that live outside or 2 miles further away from the school, and at the elementary level, it's the 1.5 miles. But of course, perception and feeling is a lot different from our parents, and certainly when we talk about the removal of a service or change in service and transportation, that does come with a lot of anxiety and emotion from our communities, and we understand that. A little bit behind the numbers, as we look at ineligibles and eligible students, we take this information from our state reports that happen each and every year, and this is a snapshot of what happens in our or on our buses. And so much like the October 1 count that happens in the schools, we send in a report each year to the state that says how many students we have riding and whether those students are at eligible or ineligible stops. And I'm just throwing some numbers up here for you for some context. So we have this year 218 bus routes, a little over 1,100 total bus runs, over 6,000 stops. We transport almost 18,000 students on a daily basis. And again, a little over 3 million miles this year, and then 8,000 activities. So grateful for all the hard work our transportation department does day in and day out to get our students safely to school. Here we are with our total number of students in the district, and then here are the numbers for those students that are eligible for busing versus those students that are ineligible for busing, again, according to state rules of that 2 miles or 1.5 miles. Okay, of those 24,000 students that are eligible, we transport almost 15,000 students that actually ride on a regular basis. And then we have a little over 3,000 students that we are transporting that are ineligible. Okay, and then we've taken this information and broken it out by our new districts, and you can see these are our riders, and then we broke it out again by those that are eligible versus those that will be ineligible to ride. So again, just to provide some context of the students that will be impacted as we move forward with these decisions. So currently, right now, we have 373 runs with 1 courtesy stop, and that is allowed by the state, and a courtesy stop is simply that. It is an ineligible stop that, as the bus is going to school, can stop at and pick up students if there is space available for those students. We have 226 stops with, or 226 runs with 2 courtesy stops. So once again, as we increase the number of these ineligible stops, then we lose funding for those stops or for that part of the run. And so the more of these ineligible stops that we have, the more funding that we don't receive from the state. And then we currently have 70 of these runs that are entirely ineligible, which means that we receive no funding from the state for those runs. All right, as we looked at secondary schools, we would like to see these ineligible stops removed. These are the junior high schools that will be primarily impacted by these decisions. And we provided the number of riders that are currently utilizing or at these stops that are ineligible, and then provided just a little bit of context about why we in the past have had these stops. Once again, we recognize as a transportation department that as we disrupt transportation, that does have an impact. But again, we feel like as a department that there are safe options for students to get to school. There is a financial cost associated with doing these ineligible routes, and so we provided some information here. Again, this is information that we gather from the state as they review our routes. For our secondary ineligible routes, we estimate the cost to be a little over $200,000. And although we're not talking about the removal of elementary for this next coming school year, there is also a cost associated with our elementary ineligible routes of $400,000. And so as we look at those two numbers together, we're a little over $500,000. And again, to provide some additional context, this is for those routes that are completely ineligible. When we begin to add in the financial costs associated with those partially ineligible routes, you know, Ron Litchfield at the state provided a number for us that was closer to about $1.7 million for those routes. So again, this is funding that's not coming back to our school district to provide transportation for these ineligible riders. Besides the financial cost, there is a cost in resources. As many of you know, the last few years we've had to utilize double runs, which provide a means for students to get to school, but is also inconvenient for families. And by eliminating these ineligible runs, we anticipate that we can greatly reduce, if not completely reduce, the amount of these double runs, because we're going to capture drivers back that can now do other things. And so here's just kind of a breakdown over the last few years of our driver numbers. So what we are proposing is in this upcoming school year is that we remove those secondary ineligible routes. And again, we're not talking about these courtesy stops. We would continue to provide these courtesy stops when space is available. Our goal is to fill these buses up with as many students as possible and to continue to provide as much transportation as possible So what we are going to try to focus on are those completely ineligible bus routes. And then the following year, then look towards those elementary ineligible routes. Finally, we'd like to move forward by providing information to our patrons that share with them that, hey, this is coming, and that allows time for them to prepare, and also to work with our cities so that they're aware of this and that they have the opportunity to provide, if they feel necessary, additional infrastructure, crossing guards, those types of things. So by acting on this now, that provides time for both our families and our cities to prepare to move forward for the upcoming school year.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any discussion to this item?
My understanding is that we don't need to vote on this. This is something that is a staff will resolve internally. And I just wanted to thank you. I know that that is like a really like we just get the really quick slides, but I know that there's a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes with GIS, with the state. So just extremely appreciative from staff, from the investment that was made to inform the board. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I wanted to also, sorry. I also wanted to say thank you for all of the time. I also just want to say, if it's possible, I know that it's a big line item, but I actually have a family member that was hit by a car on one of these ineligible routes. So part of me is a little hesitant to say, yeah, get rid of all of those, because student safety is also important. So I like that you added the information campaign. I'm curious if like the cities are also aware so that they also can start buffering up the sidewalks and the, I'm sorry, I'm totally putting you on the spot.
So that would be part of this process, is making sure that the cities are aware and communicating as best we can where these ineligible routes are or where the stops are, so that once again they have time if they choose to move forward with things like crossing guards or making, adding things to make it safer for students to cross. So we haven't really reached out to the cities yet, but certainly that's something we will do moving forward.
Also, one of the things that we've seen implemented, when I was a principal, there was a student of ours that was hit and killed too, so I understand where you're coming from, Emily. It's difficult. We want to make sure that our students are safe. But also, there are things that are PTA-led or parent-led, like walking buses. So in essence, two parents will start a walking route and they will pick up students along the way and then walk them safely to school to get them across. So there are a lot of things that we can do as a community member to mitigate that instead of burdening or shouldering the cost of all of those transportation routes too. So I think if we work in partnership and we work in collaboration with those principals and communities so that they know this is coming, it's not just a quick surprise to them, then we can start planning for that.
That's a great idea. And I think if we implement some more of that, just so we know that those areas are taken care of, I think that will be really important.
The routing for all three districts would be redone in the new configuration of the district, depending on what they decide to do with transportation services, whether those are individually or each district provided or they share. There will be a complete rerouting of those routes because of that separation. This is part of that, setting that up so that they have the flexibility to adjust that without being encumbered by the ineligibles. And my understanding is there are several districts that do not transport any ineligible riders because of the non-reimbursed expenses associated with that.
Yeah, that is correct.
In fact, I think we're one of the last districts that actually do have ineligible routes.
I guess I just want to clarify for parents listening. I think the frustrating part of this is that the law does not differentiate between the speed that's at a school or on the street, or the size of the street or the sidewalk. So I know that that we are not going to say, that one route is worse than the other, but our reality is that we do have students that will be affected by this that are crossing either Temp Highway, Mountain View Corridor, or Redwood Road. So any parents listening, please start talking to the people around you. This stresses me out very much so. I understand. I know this is not an easy decision to make, and there's hours and months and years of conversations behind this, but each area will be affected a little differently. So hopefully we start having those conversations so we can make plans early.
I just really like the idea of taking this to the public early so they have time to plan. I'm just going to suggest that maybe we ought to also make the elementary plan available as soon as possible. So maybe cities would make adjustments that would benefit both elementary and secondary. It just seems like even though it's another year away, it still is coming up, and maybe even parents could start making adjustments before that time.
I just had a couple of questions and a couple of comments. So in school districts that do not allow any ineligible bus routes, are there ever lawsuits? I just worry, because there are real safety issues with crossing University Avenue or whatever.
I would guess I could answer that, not that I'm aware of. The state provides transportation when you get over that distance that we discussed earlier, and at that point, when you're underneath that, then it becomes the responsibility of the parent to decide what is the best way for their student to get to school. Now, schools provide, at least at the elementary and at the junior high level, that opportunity to put together a safe walking route and then make that available to the public, and that is the recommendation of the school on an option for a student to get to that school.
So it becomes the job of the parent and the city to provide and advocate for safe walking routes.
Yes.
Rather than the grievance process. I also wanted to just note that busing also affects attendance, especially for our students who come from challenging circumstances. So I think that's something where we kind of have to count the cost. And maybe this is something for the new districts to approach, because it is a factor. I also want to point out that because of Senate Bill 188, we are prevented from closing schools, which prevents us from creating situations where there would be eligibility for more students. If we could have bigger areas for a school, there would be more eligibility for bus routes. But because of Senate Bill 188, we do not have that capability. So until new school boards are in place.
I just wanted to add to that I do send my child across one of these busier roads, and I appreciate the coming together of the community to make sure that the students arrive to school safely every day, and I just wanted to appreciate that. And then thank you for bringing this so that parents can have adequate time to start to make adjustments and figure out how we're going to do a walking bus, or if a parent's going to stand at a stoplight to make sure that students get across safely. I appreciate that. Seeing no further discussion, we will go ahead and go to policy 4135, guidelines for reduction in force, and I will turn the time over to Superintendent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Board Member Lincoln. We invite our legal counsel, Craig Brinkerhoff, to come forward. Again, these are discussion items. If the board feels ready to move to action, then we would recommend that you accept the revisions in policy 4135, guidelines for reduction in force.
Yes, thank you. Couple updates that it was brought to our attention that code now says that we can no longer take seniority into account when doing reduction in force measures. And so that was one of the major impetuses for changing this policy. We also, because of our circumstances, added one of the reasons for considering reduction in force being a district split. And the other major change that we added to this policy was changing pronouns from he, his to their, so that it's all inclusive, and so that we're not always referencing a him or a her, and instead we say they. So those are the main changes to this policy.
I'd like to go ahead and open it up to discussion, and then if somebody feels so moved, they could make a motion.
I move that we approve policy 4135, guidelines for reduction in force.
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Board Member King and a second by Board Member Clement to pass Policy 4135 Guidelines for Reduction in Force. Any discussion to the motion? I just want to comment that these changes just bring our policy in compliance with the code as outlined by Mr. Brinkerhoff. Seeing no further discussion, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. That motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is Policy 4285, Dues Deduction, and I will turn that over again to Dr. Farnsworth.
Yes, and I will defer to legal counsel Craig Brinkerhoff. This is a change associated with some recent legislation with respect to collective bargaining. We know that there is a reaction to that going on right now, a referendum, and so these are the changes that we would recommend retiring this policy because under current statute we're not allowed to do that. If the referendum were successful, then possibly we need to come back and change that. So I'll let you comment on that, counsel.
Yeah, so in communications with our certified association, this is a certified policy only. They decided based on HB 267 that they would no longer collect dues through the school district and through paychecks because that put a burden on them to report to the state. So they've asked or recommended actually from them that we retire this policy. It's going to be my recommendation tonight to actually hold until we know more about the referendum. So the association has requested it, but in an abundance of caution so that we don't retire this and then the referendum goes through and the HB 267 is put on pause and we would then need to resurrect this policy, at least for now until we know more about the referendum. I would recommend that we just hold for a little bit.
Does the policy, clarify for me, does the policy require that that take place? The association can still opt not to do that.
Yeah, they can, yes. The policy allows them to do payroll deductions. So it's not necessarily a requirement one way or the other. So, I mean, it is our intent to retire this, but we thought maybe we would hold for a little bit, but I'll leave that to your discretion.
Thank you for your introduction on that. Do we have any discussion on Policy 4285, Dues Deduction?
Because it's listed as a discussion action item, we don't need to pass anything to change it to a discussion. Okay.
I think personally, I'd just rather go ahead and retire it. It seems like if it was needed later on, it might come back in a different form. That would kind of be my preference.
I kind of see that it's actually within a short amount of time that we will know whether the referendum is successful. So I'm in favor of holding on this.
We wouldn't know if the referendum was successful until November, so just we get
well, yeah, getting it on the ballot, that's true.
And isn't it November of 26 that it would be on?
Well, so my recommendation, at least for now, is to hold until we know if they get enough signatures to put it on the ballot. So not necessarily, I mean, if it were the case that they did get enough signatures to put it on the ballot, then we would hold longer. That would be my recommendation.
Shall we move on?
Is there any further discussion? Any inclination to make a motion? Seeing none, we will move on to Policy 5080, Foreign Student Admissions. And again, I will turn the time over to Dr. Farnsworth.
Thank you. As with others, there have been revisions to this policy. The board is welcome to discuss that. If there's a comfort level, we would recommend that you accept the revisions to Policy 5080, Foreign Student Admission.
This policy has a few additions. It's actually been nearly completely reworked. A new statement of policy, new definitions, or I should say the definitions have been added to policy that weren't there before. it's been 10 years since this policy has been updated. One of our student services directors worked tirelessly on this prior to their retiring, so to make sure that it was ready to go as they left, so that it would be in place for future student services directors to take over. And so we worked jointly with them on getting this updated, not only to code, but also to current practices within their department. And so we feel like it's in a good place now to propose for adoption and approval.
Will you entertain a motion?
Yes, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we pass the revised policy 5080, foreign student admission.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Beeson and a second by Board Member Peterson to approve policy 5080, foreign student admissions revision. Any discussion to the motion?
I want to just express appreciation for this really has been revised, and the non-residential student aspect of it has been taken out so that this is exclusively just about our foreign exchange students, and there's a great amount of detail in it, and I appreciate all the work that's been done to make it very detailed just for our foreign exchange students.
Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion by Board Member Beeson and a second by Board Member Peterson to approve policy 5080, foreign student admissions revision. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
Next on our agenda, we have a discussion item. So we will begin the discussion of a middle and high school boundary study for the wildflower development, and I will turn that over to Dr. Farnsworth.
Thank you. Appreciate Eric Woodhouse being available to answer some questions here. As a staff, we just wanted to bring this to the board members' attention. These are two areas where we would like to make some boundary adjustments and start that process. State statute requires a 30-day notification. The board would actually eventually vote on those boundary adjustments, but we would like to begin the process of studying that to bring that back to the board for recommendations. And we'll turn some time over to Eric to give an explanation of what we're considering.
So the challenge here is that we already did a reboundary for Black Ridge and the wildflower development, but we didn't align the junior high and the high school boundary at the same time. So that community is expecting and anticipating this boundary change. I'd like to open a formal study so that we can study that, go out to the public, get any feedback that maybe we haven't taken into consideration. The other one that we want to study is the Inverness development, and it's over by Micron. Right now you can see here its boundary to Belmont, but Belmont's boundary is rapidly growing if we don't make a boundary adjustment. And the thing that's nice about doing it timely in this regard is because there isn't anybody living in that area right now. And so when you do the boundary and you don't have any active students going, the boundary adjustment is a little less volatile for those students going to a new school. So recommend that these are all the affected schools that we do want to consider in this boundary study, instead of going back and saying, well, we didn't consider Highland or Ridgeline or any of those in that area. They could all be impacted by that. I just think that it's better to include them now and then start removing them if they're not in the consideration of that new boundary. So these are the junior highs that would be in that study, and then the high schools as well. So as we start narrowing down what those boundaries looks like, we can just start removing some of those schools, but we just wanted to kind of paint with a broad paintbrush so that we could make sure that we're getting those boundaries right.
As these are discussion items, I will open them up for board discussion now.
Eric, can you go back one slide?
Yes.
Por favor, thank you.
Sorry, will you go back one more?
Yes.
What is this star in the blue? Is that Ridgeline?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for this. I have been waiting patiently.
One thing I did want to clarify, there has been a patron that reached out. So a couple things. One, when dual language immersion came to Belmont, it intentionally came to put French in that area. And second, Belmont is all full up. So even if we were to move part of Belmont somewhere else, it would not be enough. When Inverness is fully built out, then Inverness, Belmont, and Traverse will each have a third of the mountain. And so I'm not sure that everybody realizes how much growth is coming there. So it's a significant amount of houses coming in. And then also, for anybody listening, I don't think it would be wise to build another elementary on the mountain when we do have declining enrollment around, when they can be accommodated in other places. So thank you for getting this here, and excited to get it through.
So just to speak to the wildflower piece, Eric, I live very close to Wildflower, and it feels like new houses are going up every day. And so for us to make this decision early before we have a significant impact on a large number of students is very appreciated. And just to reference for any of the public who was not aware, when we were having a discussion earlier in study session about the capital plan and the recommendations from staff, there's going to be 3,500 kids at Westlake in 2028, which is when we hope to open the new high school. I don't know how many of those are going to come from Wildflower, but considering that we're opening the new middle, Sage Canyon, Eagle Mountain, and dropping down 9th grade, it gives us some time. And we need more time to get the school built, all those things. So by shifting some of those students to Sage Canyon, I know that Brian Jolly and Courtney Johnson will take very, very good care of those students. They are highly invested in student success. It's a necessity that needs to happen because the building is going to keep coming, students will keep coming, and we need to make sure that we're trying to take care of everyone's needs as much as we can. So I appreciate the fact that staff is making sure that this is resolved, so thank you.
Good point. Just to give you some numbers, Black Ridge, currently there are 3 students in 6th grade that this would impact. Harvest, 2 students. Vista Heights, total from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, there's 9 students that this would impact in that development. And then there's 17 that are going to Westlake. And so even though those numbers seem small right now, Julie's right, that will build out. And it just doesn't make sense where we reboundary them to Black Ridge, then all of a sudden they're going again to a junior high and a high school where all of their other classmates are going to Sage Canyon. So,
sorry, Eric, I didn't catch all those. Will you say those numbers again really quickly?
You bet. Black Ridge, 3 6th graders in the area. Harvest, 2 6th graders. Vista Heights, you have 3 in 7th, 3 in 8th, and 3 in 9th for a total of 9. And then at Westlake, you have 6 10th graders, 7 11th graders, and 4 12th graders, for a total of 17.
Just so the board's aware, there were other boundary considerations that we looked at, the capital team looked at as a staff. We're not recommending movement on those at this time because we've got some mitigating measures in place that will address that, and then they could be affected by a second boundary change when the reconfiguration takes place, and so we're sensitive to not do back-to-back boundary changes that could affect students. So these are the ones we're recommending for now. We're continuing to watch others, but we have some measures in place that will address those concerns.
Any additional discussion?
Okay, we'll bring those back and you'll have further clarification and opportunity to act upon those.
We now have set aside some time for some board member and superintendent reports and information items.
I have loved, this is my favorite time of year with schools, just being able to be involved with the accent on excellence and going to schools and just being there to see these awesome teachers being awarded and surprising them in their classrooms it's just been the best part of this month. And I'm so appreciative of the Alpine Foundation and for donations and making this possible to be able to, as much as we possibly can, spoil these teachers that deserve to be spoiled. And it's been so fun to, whether you're in just the classroom, I've been to the ones that we're just going into a single classroom or ones that are in the gym with several grades celebrating a teacher. And we just have amazing people in this district and such committed teachers that are there every day showing up for their kids and seeing how much those kids have connected with their teachers and love them. And I'm just very appreciative of those in our district that are involved in that to make a difference and to acknowledge those that are doing great things in the classroom.
I wanted to take a moment to shout out Orem High School's Pro Start program. They won first in state and with their culinary class, and they're going to be going to nationals in Baltimore in May, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And also, last time Stacy commented on the theater projections she has been to, and I've been going to the ones in Orem, and it is so wonderful to see the kids get up there on stage and just do such incredible things, and I just really appreciate that.
3 things. So the district art show wrapped up. Thank you to Anna Davis and all of the teachers who mentor students and provide an outlet. It's phenomenal things, what they do. We sat there for quite a while looking at all the different pieces, and I love when students get to tap into that side of their brain and show us their work. So, and I feel like this is probably, there's not really an avenue to recognize those teachers for the years and years that they put in to be able to produce then these incredible pieces. So thank you to them. Also, I'll echo Sarah, thank you to Tyler Biggie and the foundation and all the people that are so invested in our teachers and want to recognize them. I love how different the reactions are. I had one teacher who I just wasn't sure she was going to be okay. There was some panic. Some you walk in and you can see immediately they do not know why 20 people from the district and a video camera are walking into their classroom. And I wish everybody got to have that little window. And then my very favorite part is when they see their family members. And then you just watch, like, they just kind of, okay, everything's going to be okay. And I think what I love most about these things is talking with the family members when we're all kind of huddled in the office trying not to be seen, the 20 people of us, and just getting to hear from the family perspective how much these employees really do love their jobs and work so hard for all the little details to make our schools a great place for all our students. And then the last thing I was going to say, I really have appreciated the evolving of our SCCs. I think with the coherence map and the priorities and the way cluster meetings have shifted, that there is definitely a sharp upswing in our trajectory. And it's been fun to see over the last 10, 12 years as a parent how that process has evolved, where we're asking smarter questions now, and parents were understanding things more and different that I think wasn't accessible the same way that it is now. And so, whenever we have invested parents, invested community members, kids win every time. So thank you to the principals who answer. Sometimes it feels like I'm in meetings where they might get 300 questions about some very specific things. And so I appreciate the parents that ask questions. I appreciate parents that give suggestions so that we are arriving at really the very best thing for kids. And I know that it is a time commitment, and sometimes principals are running in and out with different things. And I appreciate the way that they have, SCCs have come along, and just wanted to recognize their work, and then the work of senior leadership to kind of set the bar and the tone. And so this is one of those things that when we talk about 3 strong districts, because we are on this path and we do have a clear process and a check-in with goals, that I'm confident that it will go well.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Eric Woodhouse and the entire operations team, to Joe Frank, Derek, Carrie Lynn. They have a heavy task. I appreciate the thoroughness of the capital plan and what was presented in study session, the intentionality. Every area has different needs, and every area has a different timeline. And some of those things are a pause and wait and let's see, and some of those are a level of panic that we feel like we're drowning in some of our schools. So I just really appreciate the care and the intention and the integrity of our staff. It's one thing to say that we want 3 strong districts, and it's another thing to make that happen. And so I'm just very appreciative to the entire operations team, and thank you, Eric, for the leadership that you have provided and the way in which you are making sure that we are caretaking for students for today and tomorrow. So thank you for that.
I have one more. shout out to Leonard. So I'm a post office girl. I like the snail mail. I'm a big fan of personal deliveries. We ran into Leonard on our way out today, and I think, I don't know that everybody knows what Leonard does and how he keeps everything moving, and the volume of things moving between schools every day is just phenomenal. So Leonard is awesome. He keeps things moving, and I very much appreciate him.
I want to give a shout out to our content specialist. In the Teaching and Learning Committee, we learned that there's about 20 of them, and they have this opportunity to go return to a building so that they're assured a job in the 3 school districts. But many of them have chosen to continue doing what they're doing, which is awesome work. 2 examples of this. Just yesterday, I attended the first ever elementary choir festival at Mountain View High School. And they had to divide it in half to keep it manageable, but hearing 6 elementary choirs sing together, Why We Sing, is a moving experience. And I just want to give a shout out to Rebecca Gubler for making that happen for the first time in the Alpine School District. Also in the Teaching and Learning Committee, we had a report from Carrie Milner about our textbook adoption, which is a literacy. We had to re-up our commitment to a curriculum in reading, and that was about an $8 million investment. And she is making sure that we get our money's worth, because she's using the content specialists to do a rollout of this curriculum that's going to be well done, well done. We've had pilots, and now this coming year it's going to be rolled out to all of the teachers. And I just appreciate not just the content specialists per grade level, but also our coaches who are on site at our schools are making this a very successful rollout, and we're going to get our money's worth. And finally, I just wanted to announce that in the South area, there's going to be a board member-sponsored information meeting that will be held at Timpanogos High School on Thursday, April 17th, for the public and for especially for those that are interested in running for the new school board. So I just wanted to make that announcement. Thank you.
I too wanted to echo my excitement for all of the amazing things that have been going on in the district: the art show, the theater productions, the excellence awards, the movement to create 3 strong districts, district mail. I participated in that today. It was phenomenal. Our content specialists, the elementary choir festival, the rollout of the textbook adoption, and all of the other things that our employees are doing on a daily basis to strengthen the outcomes for our students in Alpine School District. So I just wanted to echo that shout out. And Dr. Farnsworth, do you have anything?
Nope. Thank you.
With that, I will entertain a motion to move into a closed session.
I move that we adjourn into closed session. Where is it? For purposes of discussions of personnel, property, and or litigation.
Let's try this again. We have a motion by Board Member Wilson and a second by Board Member Bateman to adjourn into a closed session to discuss personnel, property, and litigation. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Wilson, aye.
Board Member Clement, aye.
Board Member Bateman, aye.
Board Member King, aye.
Board Member Lincoln, aye.
Board Member Peterson, aye.
Board Member Beeson, aye.
We will move into that closed session now.